James, how are we doing this week, buddy?
Man, I'm doing spectacular, man. Looking forward to this show, man. How are you doing? How's the family? How's everyone?
Doing great, doing great. Family's great. We're all healthy. Happy to have our sister Caitlin here. She's living with us for a little bit, so it's nice to get some more family atmosphere.
Sure, that's cool, man.
So we got a lot to talk about this one. This one's gonna be a longer
That we do.
one.
That
Yeah,
we do.
we're a
We
little
do.
bit excited, a little anticipation. Um, there's a lot of good topics to get into, and we can't wait to do it. A lot of more, time sensitive, and then like just controversial topics. That's what this is about. It's not. We want to address entertainment, philosophy, and religion, but it's not just about these funny, little clips
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
put
yeah,
up. It's trying to.
yeah,
I
yeah.
usually put up funny ones because that's what people want to see. It's funny, and they can attract with it and want to see it. But there's also real ones, right? I've put sometimes some real topics that we talk about. Um,
Yes, yes.
but I feel like we've kind of been tiptoeing around, getting the first 5 episodes out, just getting our names out there. But now it's time to, have some steak and potatoes. Now it's time to.
Yes, yes. In fact, I was telling you earlier, I almost feel like, this episode is really like sitting at, the adults table,
Oh yeah,
so to speak. This is, yes, we're going to address some things that I think that we should be addressing. There should be at least a conversation, even if we're, agree to disagree in certain areas, or even just, maybe the people listening, they may not wonder where do they stand with certain things, but at least to have a conversation, and just see, what are our thoughts,
absolutely. And so one of the big things for me, starting this journey, I was talking to James about it a lot. We talked a good amount before we started this. Like, yeah, James has always been more outspoken about these things, and I'm kind of coming to that confidence level where I feel like I know what I talk about, I know what I believe. So I feel comfortable expressing those ideas, and I know some people might not agree, but that's the whole part of this, being in the open field is like being able to defend your opinions and have a conversation, right? Not being afraid to share things. So, there was some lax, different ideas before of where like I was worried there's mutuals I have or anything acquaintances I've known where they might think vastly different thoughts, but we still know each other. We're still friends or whatever. So we might lose some this time. I'm not sure. I encourage you to stay. I encourage an open dialogue. We'd love to hear from you.
Please stay, please stay.
Yeah, yeah. But so yeah, a lot of consideration to this, a lot going into it. Before we get into all that delicious, delicious controversy, um,
Ah.
we have some plugs because we don't do that enough, and you need to know where to find our stuff. So, shameless plug time. James, what do you do outside of this podcast?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, beginning of this year, I did start my own YouTube channel, Unique Perspectives. I would love to get some feedback from people. I'm always just trying to explore different topics. There's a few things I want to actually address the next week or two about just specific cultures, the stereotypes and things like that. Just want to get into that kind of stuff. So I think that's going to probably grab a lot of people's attention. But I would love to hear everyone's feedback.
Great
On that.
stuff there, and we've definitely had some people from that channel come over and watch this, so that's awesome too. Let us know what you think on both platforms. His stuff will be, I'll link it right there, and then also everything's in the description. His YouTube channel. I have my own YouTube channel where I post some of the gaming stuff me and my wife have done that I'll talk about recently. And then follow us on all the social medias. That's how you get your 1 minute clips, your little teasers. Depending on what kind of time frame you have, we have different chunks of the podcast segments on YouTube. Ranging from 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 17 to like 40 sometimes, depending how good the segment is. But typically, that's a couple episodes go up each week about different good topics we talk about, and then the full cast. Every Monday in the evening, we try to release that. It's available on all platforms now, wherever you get your podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Audible, Google Podcasts, all sorts of different places. So just look up Stage Clear Podcast, and you should find us anywhere. Same thing with Google search will take you to this YouTube channel. So please let us know what you think. Like and
Yeah,
subscribe. Hit all that stuff. Let us know how you guys are interacting with the content. We really appreciate any feedback. But yeah,
sweet man,
all
sweet.
that said, we'll start light. we won't
There you go.
dive right in, right? We'll dip our toe in the water a little bit. We
There
can
you
start
go.
with
There you go.
weeks. I have some stuff to talk about, but we can go to James first as we do. So, how is your week, buddy?
You know what? I have to say my week has been pretty good, pretty good. Church was excellent. I feel like I'm really growing when it comes to my being a content creator. I kind of feel like I have a better understanding of what direction I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But there was, yeah, yeah, but there was something that really stood out to me. I'm going to say this week, and I was actually in the city of Venice with one of my sports classes with the children that I work with, and yeah, I remember in the middle of one of my classes, there was a guy who just kind of came and dropped off some equipment, and I knew whenever we have a coach, one of our coworkers that drops off equipment, I know that they basically quit. So that was
Oh
something
no.
that, yeah, man. So that was just kind of on my mind a little. So I mean, yeah, we can get into that. I'd love to hear how you're doing as well, but yeah, we can get into that if you like.
Yeah, sure. Let's go into it. So, you tell more of the story, or
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, I do realize that I the company that I work for, they really don't have the best approach when it comes to uh, just working with the staff. I think I don't think that they're very
convincing them to stay, or like what?
something like that. Something like that. Yeah, it just seems like they're having a very difficult time with just kind of maintaining the relationships they have with people, and I think they're really kind of bombarding a lot of people with a lot of stuff as well. So I think that's what's happening. But it's sad because within the last year, I've had at least 3 or 4 people drop off equipment randomly to me, and what that means is that one of the administrators knew I was in the vicinity, and so they basically quit, and they're like giving me the equipment because they're not prepared to go to the office, and so it's just unfortunate to me. It was just unfortunate. I was just like, wow, that's it'd be nice to for them to actually hold on to everyone, but I think what's happening is they're kind of I don't know, they're not really gosh, I don't want to say respecting, but I think they're bypassing the needs of the employees and things like that. And I think that kind
Yeah,
of goes into the difference between the boss mentality and the leader mentality. To my
absolutely.
understanding, to my understanding, the boss mentality is more of a sit back on the throne. Hey, you guys do the hard work. Let's pointing out what needs to happen, and then you have the leader. That's basically like I don't know, King Leonidas, in 300, and he's in front.
Yeah.
He's in front, and he's taking care of everyone, but he's in front. And so I think I'm thinking about maybe checking with the job and just kind of inquiring a little bit, and I don't want to impose, but I've been with them for almost 10 years, so they respect my work ethics and all that. But yeah, it just really showed me that it's just an area that they need to kind of work on. So it was really kind of yeah, it was, and it happened just yesterday, so it's kind of still fresh in my mind, but it kind of
No,
threw
I
me off a
get
little
you.
bit.
That's for sure, something we've talked about in business class a lot, especially at APU, where they're teaching like morality in business, right? And they taught like to have Christ at the center of your business and go in with like a Christian mindset where it's more giving than taking, right?
Mhm.
But that's definitely something to think about, the boss versus the leader. But what's difficult is like everyone respects a leader more, but it's hard when the business gets big enough. Essentially, at some point, you can't be at the front of every battle, you know.
True, very true,
So
very.
that's something to consider, and how to still implement like a leader first mindset and be respectful and everything, and garner respect when you're not on the front line, right?
Mm.
That's something that effective business owners look at and they try to emulate.
Mm.
Essentially maybe hiring other people that can be those leaders on the front line to speak for them, right?
That's a good idea. I like
And
that. I like that.
I'm interested in your kind of role. I know you've been there a long time, and I'm not sure if you think you're still like an entry level person, or if you're like higher up, or you're like one of those field leaders that people go to. They see this is how the guy works, and this is a good work ethic to emulate, and that's why they want you there. I know if you start like bringing things up to them and solving problems, typically that's grounds for like promotion if you solve a big problem for them, right? And you just go
Mm.
up the ladder, and oh, this guy can help us with the what's it called, the I guess day-to-day tasks, right? The
Mm.
overhead of the whole operation.
There you
So
go.
if you have good ideas and everything, they might see about that for you. So I'm not sure what your plan is or anything, but if that's what you're trying to get out of when you say you're going to go talk to them.
Yeah. Actually, to be honest with you, because of my work ethics and as a Christian man, my standard is really God's standard. So my idea is to appease God. So it makes it actually a little easier, to be honest with you, to work at this job or any job for that matter, because to be punctual, to make sure you get a good night's rest so you can be effective the next day, and that
Yeah.
you put other people before yourself. So I'm serving these children, I'm serving these families. They're paying for this service, so
God
the
wants you to
Bible
play
says,
soccer with random kids.
hey, there you go, right? Yeah, but these families are, whether regardless of where their tax bracket, where they lay in the tax bracket, um, they're paying for this. They're
Yeah.
paying for this, and so I want to not only represent our company and myself and my family, but also, as an ambassador of Christ, I want for them to say, well, okay, this guy is actually really care about what he's doing and things like that. So, yeah, I am a senior head coach, so I get the opportunity to train people all the time. It's
Do
something
you
that
get discounts at Denny's and movie theaters because you're a senior head coach?
you know what? No, but I do get. They look out for me. They
Okay.
look out for me. But in many ways, I kind of feel like my introverted personality does come out a little bit. I like to kind of do my own thing sometimes, and what I mean is that sometimes, for example, like I don't know, let's say uh, they have like a all staff meeting, and it's a little bit out of the way for me. I wouldn't go to those, and the reason why they really don't really stress it is because they never have an issue with me, So I almost get
Yeah.
that luxury of, oh, okay, we know, Coach James is going to be okay, like there's always families calling them saying, hey, we want Coach James at this particular place or area because they know they can rely on me. So they've learned like I'm okay, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I don't want the company to run down into the ground, So
Have Have you considered maybe like have you talked to the other parents and everything? Because you said someone asked you to train someone personally, right? Or like be with
well, yeah,
someone.
it's actually a part of my job position now. I mean, I lead my own classes, but I also train other coaches. They come to my classes to get trained
Well,
sometimes for
not
weeks.
training coaches, but like clients. Like, oh, I want you to come play with my kid or whatever for this amount of time, personally,
Okay.
right? And you've had those, no?
Yeah, I had somebody in Orange County got my number, and
So ideal, obviously, like you're still gonna be driving far away for certain clients, but have you thought about maybe like doing that business for yourself, like doing a version of it, like because you're so good at it and you know what it takes, you could do a personal thing where it's just you, but you put out the message in those maybe those other areas where you have really good clientele already, and they get their friends to come, and I'm not
Mm.
sure. Has that something ever you considered?
I actually have. In fact, I'm gonna say maybe around 2020, late 2020, I did actually consider going in that direction. So I did start a little bit. I had somebody who actually paid me for, I don't know, maybe about a month's of work or something like that. But I think the lockdowns kind of threw things off, and so
Yeah.
at the time, so, yeah. So it was really it kind of threw things off. But I have thought about moving forward with that, but as of right now, I feel like my head is really in my YouTube thing. I'm really trying to figure that out, and the job is very secure. They pay me well, in my opinion.
That's true.
Um, yeah,
If
yeah,
they're taking care of you, all the better. That's good.
yeah,
And
yeah.
well, and the thing too with me, because I'm gonna be, I just finished up my resume. I'm working with my mom and everything to figure it out and iron it out because has a lot of experience hiring and being the person that is hired. So I spend a lot of time doing that, but so much of me right now in my life is like do business for yourself, like work for yourself. Don't get
Yeah.
sucked into a corporation for years, right? They don't appreciate you like you should be. If you put the same amount of effort into your own project, then you reap all the rewards. Whereas if you're working for a company, you only ever get a piece of the pie, no matter how big a deal or how big a project
Mm.
you help them create, right? So something about that just in my soul, it's just like kind of crushes that. And but I realize like I'm gonna have to work for somebody for a little bit to get my
Yeah,
bearings,
yeah. Initially,
while I'm doing
absolutely.
all this stuff. And I'm thinking about the interview process and how that's gonna be, and how I'm typically crush interviews because I'm very personable and I can talk very well. But it's also like it's because I'm truthful and I'm honest.
Yeah.
And now I have a different mindset, and I don't know what my answer is going to be to the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely not here, right?
Yeah. I'm
um,
just imagining that. Well, well, excuse me. Well, get out of here then.
no, absolutely. And I need
That's
to, myself, I need to just basically, hands and knees, tell them what they want to hear. That's what it's going to be. Whatever you got to do to get hired, right? Um, but you say that, and you're talking about your plate, how full it is, and how you like what your pay and everything. And it gives you the opportunity to do this other stuff. That's what's important. And for me, I'm looking for a 9 to 5 or whatever the case may be that has like the least responsibility available, right? And God help me, because they're probably going to find this clip somewhere during my interview. But
just imagining that.
yeah, definitely not going to say that in the interview. But yeah, so I definitely work for yourself and all that stuff, and I'm trying to do that too. But that's all the only reason I encourage your like self starter, and I'm glad you had those thoughts. But I think I like where you're going though. Like if this thing takes off, it takes off, and I think you're in a good spot to kind of work on this. I'm trying to be in a
There you
spot like that sometime soon. So
go. Nice, man. Nice.
cool
How's the
deal.
week been treating you? How was church? How's the family been? How's
It's been
everything else?
good. It's been good. Still reading the Bible every day. That's doing great. Me and little
Nice.
Aurora, and I, church is going good. Today's message was really good, and we're,
Good.
you know, it's just all around doing pretty well. I'd say I am a little bit disappointed because I mentioned to you, I think last time, that I wanted to start a Bible study with my football guys,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, I've talked about that, and so I've I still want to do that, and the people I've reached out to specifically, I know would come, but I found there's another church in town that actually uh, got to them first, right? There's already an athlete Bible study that has like 30 or so of the guys already going,
Oh,
so it's
interesting.
already pretty big, and so I'm like,
Oh,
I
really?
can't see, people, especially athletes with their times already so busy,
Yeah.
spending
So
two
many-
sessions a week on top of
Yeah.
church, on top, so I think I'm gonna back off for now. I'm gonna go to that session with some of the guys and see how it is,
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah,
see
yeah.
if I agree with the doctrine that they're saying, and for me, as long as they're preaching, the gospel, preaching biblical authority, and that they should be reading their Bibles every day, as long as they're encouraging those things, I don't think I'll have much of a problem with what's going
Cool,
on.
cool,
If the
cool.
people are being served, the people are being served. That's fantastic.
Nice, man.
I might still do a Bible study thing with other people at some point, just because I want to.
Yeah.
But I have to be honest, I was a little disappointed. Like in my chest, I was like, man, this is really like it's unfortunate. I wanted to be the guy to do that for them, but it's okay. We'll see how that goes tomorrow. We're gonna go and sit in and see how it is. I haven't actually
Okay, now.
been to an official one, so it'll be fun.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, you're gonna have
Yeah,
to let me know how that is, man.
I will.
Oh.
I will. I don't know if we'll save it for the podcast next week or we'll
Okay,
just talk about
okay.
it. But
If it's juicy, save it for the podcast.
if it's juicy, okay, yeah. Um, yeah,
Oh
and
man,
then
wow.
so other than that, me and the wife have just been having a ton of fun. Still, we're playing Elden Ring. Great game, from Soft game. Giant open world. There's tons of stuff to do, and I'm now getting to the point. I beat like two of the game's first like major bosses. There's a ton of boss fights all over, but like two of
Mhm.
like the major boss fight, they have like cinematics to them, right?
Oh.
And it's just good stuff. It's good content. Like and they're challenging and everything, but it's rewarding when you beat them. And
Mhm.
I was actually able to make one of the weapons the boss used. So like this
Oh,
guy has
nice.
like a bunch of axes, right? And he's like flying around hitting you and stuff, but at like halfway through the fight, his second phase as it is, he like
Uh-oh.
cuts off his own arm and goes to like a dragon head nearby and like uses that as his arm, and he's like bear witness, and it's like
Oh my
flames and
God.
everything. So
Oh,
all of
that's
his
so
moves are
funny.
redone. And what's interesting with it is that like with the Souls games and everything, there's patterns, right? And there's been a bunch of patterns throughout all the Souls games. There's like 4 or 5 games now: Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, and then Sekiro, I believe. So
Mhm.
all of those are like Souls type games from the same company,
Oh, okay.
and they're all known for their difficulty in nature, right? Every basic enemy can hurt you pretty bad if you don't respect it. and then the boss fights, right? And the boss fights are like it's almost like a puzzle, right? You're going around and you're seeing their move set and everything they do, and you're timing things. Okay, I dodge now or I block now, depending on your build. And I
Yeah.
might have talked before, but the build variation is a huge factor of why it's so popular and why people love it so much, because you can beat the game
Oh,
so many different ways, right?
interesting. Interesting.
So yeah, I am timing out this boss and I'm beating him at the second phase, and then at phase two he switches up the timing, right?
Oh,
So it's like when I rolled this second, now I have to wait a second or more longer to roll, right? And that's
mhm.
what's crazy about this one. And I've seen different funny clips or funny videos people make about it, where it emphasizes FromSoft spent like a decade probably. I think that's when
Mhm.
Dark Souls 1 came out, was like 2011. Demon Souls came
Oh,
first, so
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
a decade for sure of
Mhm.
games where enemy lifts his hand, okay, an attack is coming, roll out the way or block it, right? And now with this one, there's such a delay, James. It is like ridiculous. So he puts his hand up, you roll. Oh, not yet. You keep rolling, and then you're out of
That's
stamina,
bad.
and
That's
then
bad.
now he comes down.
Oh, that's
It
bad.
is brutal. It
That's
is
bad.
brutal. I like literally. I cannot kid you. Probably 3, 4, 5 count. Sometimes you have to wait. So like 1, 2,
No,
3.
no.
And you think, okay, I'll roll now. I'll roll now. And then as soon as you're like in between, they get you, right? And some of the
Wow.
moves, like they track where you're going. Some of them don't. Um,
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible.
no, it's fun, James.
Oh,
It's fun.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It's super engaging, right? But so yeah, that got me that because I there was one specific move that I was tracking that it's like, okay, before the phase two, it takes this many. I'm not counting the seconds, but I can kind of feel it,
Yeah.
right? You feel the
Mhm.
rhythm, and then
Yeah.
afterwards, I always die to that same move. So I'm like, okay, I need to wait another second, right? And
Okay.
so it's
Okay.
so rewarding when you figure it out, and that's why it's like a puzzle, you know. There are
Um,
it doesn't directly tell you, but it tells you via, you dying a lot, that hey, this area is too strong for you, or you're not going to beat this boss yet, right? Because if you go to a boss, giant health bar at the bottom, right? But if you hit it and you don't see it move, it's time
yeah.
to
That's
go
never a
away.
good sign.
It's
Yeah, that's
time to
never.
go.
Yeah. So you always have the option to just walk away from a fight.
Surprisingly, you can run past many of the enemies in the game.
Okay. Okay.
Boss fights, there's some that are tied to progression and everything, but the boss that I fought, the main castle or whatever, Julie
Hmm.
found a way completely around it. She didn't even have
Wow.
to go in the entire zone. She skipped 2 main bosses and got to the next area. She just found a path.
Hmm.
It's insane the level of like, rugamaroo you can get around and everything.
Oh, that's so funny. Wow.
Um, yeah, super.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't think that was an option for that game, but that's very fascinating.
Yeah.
So you just won't, so you won't basically, I mean, you'll basically lose the opportunity to potentially level up from beating that boss, but you can actually go past them.
Yes. So that's the thing. You can go past another area, but if that area is too tough for you, you gotta.
Uh,
Not that you
you
have to
just
fight those bosses. You can grind other little monsters or whatever, just for levels. But it'll take longer and stuff. There is kind of a clear progression, but you can absolutely go wherever you want, and it's just gonna be harder. If you don't upgrade your weapons and armor and stuff with the materials you get from killing the other minions. Um, you're just gonna
Mm.
suffer more, right? The boss fight could take an hour at perfect play, you never getting hit, versus like if you're powerful enough or overpowered, it can take like 10 minutes, right? Like they're bosses. If you level up really strong, you go back to the starting area, you beat them like nothing, right?
I love that. I love that.
So yeah, it has static, um, I guess, difficulty, right?
Okay.
And it's really up to you whether or not you're gonna come in prepared or not. And what's tough is when you do good damage, but you're getting like one shot kills, right? So clearly your health isn't big enough, or you don't have enough defense or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
tempting because you see the path. Like if I just don't get hit at all, I can win. And I spend
Wow.
like an hour beating a boss that way sometimes.
Wow. Wow.
Because
That's
you
some
got to know the
commitment right
pattern, and if they just instant kill you every time you get hit, just don't get hit, right?
there. Yeah. 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 I mean, there you go.
But typically, if I see that my weapon does like no damage, I'm like, okay, next time.
Wow.
So that game's been super fun. And what's awesome, like I told you before, it was like I had the faith in my right hand and the whip, right? And so I
Okay.
found a scythe that scaled with faith. So
Okay.
it was actually like designed like it was angel's wings. And
Nice.
there's a special move, I think it's angel wings or whatever, where you like jump into the air, swing once and swing twice, right? So it does
Nice.
holy damage and everything, and so that's been super fun for the past like while. I didn't talk about it the past couple of times because I forgot, but I've been using that, and the scythe is super cool. Like on the horse especially, you're like the Grim Reaper.
Oh,
Um,
that's so cool.
yeah, uh, but I recently found I've been looking the whole game because there's like builds where you can go faith, but like strength based or dexterity based, where you're using weapons mainly, and then you just have faith. But I wanted to go the pure faith route where I'm using like incantations and spells and stuff, right? Healing and throwing like lightning and stuff. That's kind of the with incantations and faith builds, you can use flame damage and so fire spells and lightning spells. And I was looking for that stuff and I couldn't find it like all game that I've played so far.
Mm.
And I heard on other, you know, other podcasts and other places I've seen coverage about the game that like the first area is really where you find all the holy stuff, but I must have missed a lot of it or whatever. But
Mm.
anyway, that's all to say that I finally like killed an enemy that gave me a bunch of like good spells, and I'm so the past day alone I've had a blast just like throwing
Nice,
lightning
man.
bolts, calling down lightning strikes, getting my
That
weapon to
sounds
do lightning
exciting.
damage, and it's like such a unlimited power. I feel like Emperor Palpatine. It's great.
Yeah, right,
It's
right.
so
Uh,
fun. I'm just. Zzz, zzz.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, it's funny because a lot of my like channels that I keep up with, who, they're gamers talking about stuff but it's so cool because a lot of them seem to be very excited about this game and there's just so much it seems to be able to explore, with the
Yeah,
game. So yeah, yeah. So
it's
it's
super broad, and people were afraid of getting into the games because I said before like the difficulty, right? But this one's probably the easiest to get into for sure. Like I said, you can run past most enemies, and Julie's done that pretty
Mm.
well. She's like, "No, I'm a chicken. I don't want to fight." Um, but yeah, so it's been, and I feel like I said, not just Palpatine, but Zeus, because I hold giant lightning bolts, and I'm, yeah, yeah,
Oh my
just
gosh. Oh
throwing
my
them.
goodness.
It's
Oh,
a
that's
super fun time. Even on the horse too, just running around.
oh, that has to be very
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah. So I just got that, so we're super excited. I was like literally like before we started because you had to get home from church. We had some extra time before we started today, but I was cackling like an evil genius, like running around and just lightning bolting people. It was super fun.
Oh man, it's funny because I really feel like one of the most amazing things I feel like the gaming industry has really invested well in is the free roaming thing. Like
Oh yeah.
there's something liberating about that. Like of course I love my Resident Evil games where you pretty much you're kind of locked into going a certain path.
Yep.
Like they may give you like the illusion that you're in a police station and there's these other doors, but you're pretty much locked in a certain. But I don't know when you play Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto, Elden Ring, and it's just nice that like I can just literally pick any
Go
direction and
anywhere.
go,
Yeah.
just go, and just find out what happens. So it's I feel like that's something that a lot of us we really appreciate.
There's
You know.
different types of gamers. People game for different reasons. That's why there's so many different genres and so many different
Yeah.
things you can do. But
Yeah.
absolutely, with these open world games, even if it's an option, even if it's seen as an option, but it's not really, right? Because they'll
Yeah.
still like
Yeah.
this area is too difficult, go back,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
still nudge you, right? And that's something I've even found with Dungeons and Dragons, like a tabletop RPG where it's all kind of in your head, is where like you have limitless possibilities, but people still need direction, right? Otherwise, they feel kind of stuck, like they don't know what to do.
Mhm.
So it is good to have like a call to action or like a lead to a quest, right? Like someone comes and tells you you can go here and do this if you don't know what to
Yeah.
do, right? But the big
Yeah. Yeah.
appeal of these like beautiful, and it is gorgeous. Elden Ring is gorgeous.
Mhm.
These beautiful games that have wide open spaces. Same thing with Red Dead and all these other games is like, oh, what's that over there? And then going and finding out, right?
Oh man, I was just thinking the same thing about Red Dead. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
it's so vast and so beautiful, and you can see something off in the way distance or on the map, right? And it's a brief little drawing, but you're like, that looks interesting. There's got to be something there. And if it's a good enough game, more often than not, there is, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So this is definitely one of those games where
That's
wherever you
awesome.
look, you can be. I want to go over there, and there'll be something there to fight. There'll be something there to
That's
do. Someone
so
there to
funny.
talk to. Yeah,
I love that. I love that.
and it's
I
the same
love
thing. I don't know if you're familiar with World of Warcraft or other MMOs. They're all typically
play with it, but no, I don't really. Yeah, I don't play them, but yeah,
yeah.
I'm familiar.
So they all are this model of a big open world, right? But they're typically there's zones like level this to this level. It shows you on the map, right?
Hmm.
But you can for sure like explore the world, and that's it's not just like seeing something on your map and going there, but also when you go to a different area, the environment changes, right? A toxic
Mm.
swamp to like a beautiful pathway with a sunset, and right this, and so there's actually a place called Kalid, which is like right next to the starting area, Limgrave in Elden Ring, and it the sky changes to like red, the music changes to like a horror stringy thing, and you
Really?
immediately know something's up, something's different, right?
Oh, well, funny,
And the enemies
funny.
are way tougher, and so it's kind of
Yeah.
giving you the vibe, hey, go away now, come back later. Um, there's
Wow.
yeah, the town is infested with this thing called scarlet rot, which is worse than poison. It does more
Mm.
damage, quicker damage, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's super interesting, and that's just part of game design, right? Where
Mm.
you're making these beautiful environments that people want to explore. That's kind of essential if you're having an open world game, you know?
Wow. 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 Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot, and I know you didn't really play Skyrim too much, but I heard like a good comparison was that, and that's really the only other, because that was like made for the mainstream, right? That's as vanilla of a like, I guess, art role playing game setting you can get. That's just like fantasy world, you know, anyone can get into it. It's easy, and it's huge open world. There was even a someone's grandma, right, like an elderly lady, started a YouTube channel, and she just plays the game.
No.
Yeah, yeah, and she just like goes around doing whatever, and it's like it's really simple to get into, and it's a beautiful world and everything, and it's much to
Mhm.
explore. Um,
That's fine.
so having like a beautiful soundtrack to go along with that as people explore also helps. That's another thing. I've written several papers or whatever assignments this week just listening to Elden Ring soundtrack. The
Really?
first hour is like nice calming music, and then like the last 2 hours is just boss fights. And it gets so epic. It is like such good like dramatic like everything.
What do
It's
you go on YouTube to listen to it, or what,
yeah,
what do you
yeah,
look
YouTube.
on that? Okay.
Elden Ring full original soundtrack, OST,
Okay.
whatever.
Okay.
I
Okay.
I
Yeah.
love that thing. It's super good. But so yeah, I was people compare it to Skyrim, and when Skyrim came out, like I said, it was the main normalized version of it, and it was widely popular. It sold like 10 million in the first month, and Elden
Yeah.
Ring like blew it out of the water.
Wow.
So it's kind of crazy, and I'm really happy that it's a Souls-like game that did that. You know, it's not just a regular another Skyrim or something, but
Yeah.
it's difficult, it's challenging, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
has challenging boss fights. It has different things that different systems and everything. The vast different weapon builds you can do, the customization and everything,
Mm-hmm.
um, and the
Wow.
UI, the user interface. Everything around the screen is very minimal. It's almost all gone, and you just get to appreciate the landscape and everything the whole time.
Huh?
Uh, you
Oh.
you press a button and everything comes up: your health bars, your items, and like a compass, right?
Mm.
Um, and then like your currency at the bottom right there. But it's so refreshing coming from other open world games like say Ubisoft games like Assassin's Creed, Uncharted, what's the other one? Far Cry, all those other ones, right? Where the user interface is just so clustered. You have a map right here. You have all your other stuff taking up most of the
Yeah.
screen. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so it's just really
Sure.
refreshing. I'm super happy that this is like a super popular game, and it's gonna be good. I'm very happy for it. Super
Yeah,
fun.
no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I can tell this is one of those games where people are still talking about it, 4 or 5 years from now,
Oh yeah.
I can see that. I can see that.
Well,
Yeah.
what's crazy is I mentioned Skyrim earlier, and Bethesda to this day like is still selling that game on other platforms.
That's funny.
And they always advertise it, and they even made a commercial joke with Keegan Michael Key, about like a refrigerator, and like he played Skyrim on the refrigerator or something. It was like, um, so, and that it's very telling because they've come out with other games since then, but they do not say like, oh, this game's available here now. It's always another Skyrim port because it's their best-selling game. It's when they got it right, you know. Not to say they haven't done anything great since then. It's but the numbers speak for themselves, and their marketing team speaks for itself.
Yeah, no, seriously, yeah. No, I was gonna say, I mean, with Bethesda, man, I love the Evil Within, man. I feel like that
Oh,
game is.
I forgot that they made that.
Oh man, I was thinking about going through the second one, in a month or so.
I
But
still
yeah.
have to. I have it saved, and my whole thing.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's like I have so many horror games I want to play though, and I don't want to get into because I still have to finish Res 2.
Resident Evil 2, yeah, yeah.
I started what's the really scary one? Outlast,
Oh,
where you can't fight back at all.
oh, I didn't know you started that one.
Yeah,
I haven't
that was
played
a while
any of
ago.
those. Okay, I haven't played any of those. I should, right? Everyone's always telling me about those, and
Very
I'm just thinking
scary.
like,
Well, go ahead.
not able to fight back. I'm like,
And that's the thing. I learned very quickly I'm a fan of survival horror, not just horror. I much prefer when I have a chance to fight back than when
yeah,
I'm just a scared little boy with a flashlight on his camera that will run out. And so it's
uh,
very different. It's still
okay.
enjoyable. It's just it takes a lot more courage from me, and
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
can
there.
imagine.
It
I'm
helps when I have other people
convinced to check
watching.
those out. Yeah, I may have to check those out for
They're
sure.
good. They're good. But the other thing I heard about Outlast 2, I saw some gameplay of it. That the settings, are just very cryptid and
Yeah,
horrid
yeah,
and gruesome
yeah.
and
Oh
tough. Grit
yeah.
your teeth. Because there's this Resident Evil 2 zombies and viruses and stuff, and I'm a cop and I get to shoot. And then
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like my favorite horror game, Alien Isolation. Oh, the alien! Ah,
That's right. That's
you
right.
know.
That's
But this one's like no, it's a cult of like I don't know, religious zealots that kill babies, like literally,
right.
and then one of them's like a mental asylum, and
Oh,
it's
that's
just
right.
there's no like popular alien like there's no nerd I get out of it, right? With Alien
Oh,
Isolation, I'm a huge nerd. I love that franchise. Like I get that,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah, yeah.
scary, but also we've been exposed to the alien a lot, right? So it takes that away. But it's a intellectual property I like. With Resident Evil, it's like zombies and everything. It's just a good formula. With this
Yeah, absolutely.
stuff, it's literally just nightmare fuel. It's like like creepy atmosphere to the max, right? And
That's
Resident Evil
so.
7 did that too for me, because it was a creep. But even then, it's a familiar creep me atmosphere, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Hillbilly swamp marsh thing, and
yeah,
there
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
zombies, but it was So I'd say,
Molded.
yeah, the
The
molded,
molded.
yeah. Um, that game was
Uh,
great.
yeah, yeah.
But so go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say the only game I've probably ever played and actually own, is there's a sort of a reimagining of Silent Hill, the very first one,
Hmm.
and it's called Silent Hill Shattered Memories.
Okay.
Yeah, and in that game alone is the only game I know that, at least until Outlast came out, is the game where you weren't able to fight back. Like you could literally. Um, Silent Hill has always had this very interesting idea or theme of you're in this crazy environment, and then later on it sort of changes and reconfigures itself into some type of nightmarish type of and these creatures come out, but typically you have your weapons. And already, what I like about Silent Hills is in most of the games, you're not playing somebody that is familiar with, they're not like an ex-cop or ex-marine, or like they're regular people. So the way that they fight is you can see it's awkward. You can see like they're not used to, using a crowbar or using a pistol. Sometimes your shots miss. It's
Yeah.
really great. But Shattered Memories actually um, really put you in a position where you're being chased all the time in certain situations, and you don't have any weapons in the entire game. You have maybe flares to kind of make these things, whatever these things are, to get away from you temporarily. Or even if you're running through a hall, you could actually maneuver and toss things as you're running you can, knock over the bookshelf
Yeah.
just to slow it down, whatever it is that's, coming after you. But um, and yeah, it just really kind of put you in a very vulnerable spot. So that's the only time I've ever really experienced something even remotely close to the Outlast concept. But
It's
yeah, it's great.
it's literally, you have a camera and batteries, and all you do is have that flashlight and the night vision with the camera. But
Oh, that's terrible.
yeah, and it's not like other games. I don't know if Alan Wake does it, or like I forget the
Oh,
game.
wait, no.
But one
No,
of there's some game that like the flashlight is like a weapon, right?
it's
It's
Alan Wake for sure. That's
Yeah,
Alan Wake.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not that, right? The flashlight does nothing but make you feel
No.
better about yourself, and it is taken away from you if you can't find enough
Oh my
batteries.
good.
And
Oh.
I don't know what god awful camera that man is using, but it burns through those like nothing. So
Oh, that's terrible. Wait, so
yeah.
how are you? How are you? Is it recharging or what? What is the deal?
No, you find batteries. You put them
Oh,
in,
that's
and you
terrible.
see the battery life drain, and then there's a little red
Oh,
bar, and you
that's
know you're screwed. And you can
terrible.
either reload the batteries, or you run out of batteries,
That's
and you go
terrible.
through the dark.
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible.
It is horrible.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
pretty bad.
Yeah, wow. Wow.
It's super scary for sure. Yeah, that one's a daylight game for sure. Like I'm not playing that at night. No sir. Um,
Oh my gosh. Gotta love these games, man. Gotta love them. Gotta love them. Alan Wake was actually re-released recently for the newer consoles, so I was actually thinking about buying it. I think it
uh,
might be 30, 40 bucks. But I really enjoyed it when it first came out. I think it was on Xbox One, maybe. But I really enjoyed it a lot, and I love the concept. I love how it was like a TV show. There's a
yeah.
second one being made already, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I might have to revisit Alan Wake and get that remastered version. I really enjoyed. It was really yeah, and the flashlight concept was so interesting to me, and the way it was just set up, it just really drew me in. I felt like
Yeah.
I couldn't stop playing. Like I wanted to know what was going to happen next. And then they set it up like a TV show kind of. It was just so fascinating to me. I've never played anything with the narration of that. It was wow. I was just like, wow, I could not stop playing the game.
No, for sure. I get you. I
Yeah,
get you.
uh, yeah, yeah. But that's my thing is those kind of games, man. Alan Wake, Alan Wake.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, man.
So that's typically our week. We just played a lot of Elden Ring, and in our free
Nice.
time at least, right? We're doing our basic household stuff. If you don't have anything else you wanted to bring up last second?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, something very brief actually. The Morbius movie actually is going to be released this coming Thursday.
Is it
So
time? Is it time
yeah,
already?
yeah. I know it's been delayed like two or three times within the last year.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to this, and I know Jared Leto is happy that it's finally coming out because like I don't know why. I don't know if it's reshoots. I don't know if they've been altering certain things because maybe it's connecting with some of the past Marvel movies that came out, and all that. And but it's just fascinating to me. I think a lot of us are wondering what universe is Jared Leto's.
Yes, because that trailer was so misleading. It's like, are they the same universe now? Is everything combined? Is it all not?
It's very confusing. One of the things that I've seen in one of the more recent trailers is, he's beating up some guys in some warehouse or something, and they're asking him, well, who are you? And he just said, I'm Venom,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then he just kind of said, oh no, I'm,
Dr.
Doctor
Morbius.
Michael, yeah,
Yeah,
at your service. But then I'm thinking, okay, so he knows who Venom is.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so to me, it was like, okay, but at this point, I kind of feel like Disney, Sony, Marvel, they're at the point now where they don't mind misleading us. So
No,
I mean,
not that.
yeah,
That too.
you
The
can't
thing
even take
is,
that as anything.
it might be. I think it's fair to say that it is Sony because that Venom thing seems pretty clear. What doesn't seem as clear is Vulture being in it. I
I
forget
was just about to say that. I was just about
what's the actor's name again? Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton. Yeah.
Uh, but he was in a lab coat or something. And I don't know if they referenced him being Vulture, but he could just be the actor playing a character. Because it
He
makes
definitely shows signs of being the
Vulture.
vulture.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had to watch the
Almost
trailer
like,
again, but
oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
it comes out this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. So
awesome.
I'm gonna.
I love that because I forget about it in my head. I'm so busy, and then it's like that thing I
Yeah,
wanted.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
here now. It's awesome.
yeah. And I think I'm trying to remember. I don't know if Doctor Strange is the next big.
But that's like summer, right?
Okay,
That's
yeah,
gonna be
yeah,
wild too.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm already knowing. I'm already knowing.
Super
I
hyped
already know.
for Morbius. So it makes sense that he would be in Venom, or that he would know Venom because it's like Sony and that's still them, and they are the ones producing it. So that makes more sense to me. Um, but as far as him referencing that whole thing, it's who knows, right? As far as Michael Keaton referencing Vulture, that's what makes it confusing.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of stuff. I think in some of the trailers in the past, they've had Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man posters on his backgrounds, and so it's very confusing. But I think they're at this point, like they know how to mislead people, and like I remember even with Spider-Man, No Way, Far From Home, um, No Way Home, No Way Home. I remember, like there was a scene of Spider-Man leaping in the air against all these enemies. I'm thinking, oh, this really doesn't make any sense. Why would Spider-Man fight all of these multiple enemies? He's not. I mean, he's a good fighter, but he's not that good. And then you
Yeah,
find out later, oh, well, there was three Spider-Man.
yeah,
And then that makes sense. Oh, okay. They're all, but they just kind of removed them for that trailer, So, yeah, at this point, it just seems like. But one thing I do know for a fact, and I don't have too much to add after this, is that I know for some years now, Sony has been wanting to build their own superhero universe since they bought all the rights from Marvel of Spider-Man and the
yeah.
property of Spider-Man. So not only Spider-Man do they own, but they own any characters related to that. So obviously Venom and Carnage and Silver Sable and anybody, Morbius, Craven the Hunter, all these
Oh
people are
yeah.
specifically Spider-Man people. So this is why I can see they're obviously building up their own universe, which they can. There's so many characters in the Spider-Man universe. I mean, they could actually they wouldn't even need Marvel if something happened. They wouldn't even need them.
Yeah, and what I like about Morbius, and I don't know his whole story, I don't know much about it, but he's a vampire.
Yeah, yeah, some form of vampire. Yeah,
So
yeah.
all I'm hearing is Blade. Give me Blade. Give him to me. Hand him over. Let me have him. Make something, please. That's all I'm
It,
hearing.
it's funny because there was a older Spider-Man cartoon, and maybe you've seen it
The
in the past.
'90s Spider-Man show,
Okay, okay, okay.
the Spider-Man show, the best one, the
Yeah,
only one.
yeah, yeah. But I do remember Blade and Morbius being in the same cartoon, and
Yeah.
Blade was coming after him. He was coming
Yes.
after, him, and he was relentless. I think what was interesting about the Morbius story, just in a general sense, is he started out as bad, and then somehow over the years they transitioned him to be like an anti-hero, like he's kind of good,
Yeah,
kind of
that's what
like
I thought. He was a
Punisher, kind
villain.
of. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think that's what we're going to see in the movies. I think he's going to start off kind of questionable, but I think that's what I'm suspecting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and that's to say, like Blade too. I want Blade, but also, I mean, my boy Ghost Rider. Like, please, please. You got Venom, you got Blade. But just bring Ghost Rider. Just make my dreams come true. I'm just bring all the Edge Lords back. Make them popular again. I mean, seeing how Nightmare Before Christmas did for Hot Topic, it does numbers. So just bring them back. I swear. Invest in Hot Topic stock the second they announce Ghost Rider.
Oh my
uh,
gosh. Mm.
People love their
Yeah,
edge lords, man. It's great, and it's
yeah.
funny because the team that I make on the Marvel Ultimate Alliance is like a game where you get to make a team from a bunch of different heroes.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's always consistently like it's got Blade, it's got Ghost Rider. If I can do Venom, I'll do Venom. And the team, if you do certain team combinations, you get certain bonuses. Like the X-Men will have extra focus, so extra power with their abilities.
Nice.
The Avengers have like a bunch of stats increased, right? So if you choose that team, it's like Back in Black, right? Because you got Venom, Ghost Rider, Blade. I think Black Panther too. Um,
Okay. That's a good team.
so yeah,
Very
right.
good team.
I love. I wish I had more outlets to like talk about all that stuff because I love like doing the teams, like seeing which ones work against others, and
Uh-huh.
sorry, just my nerd. Love it. It's great.
Uh,
But yeah,
oh my God.
glad to know it's coming out this week. Super happy. I'll be checking that out for sure.
Oh yeah. Same here, man. Same
Yeah.
here.
Any other movies coming out recently? I thought something dropped Like a movie came out like a while ago, just like out of the blue. Maybe it was Batman because I did the same thing with Batman. You said it was like coming and like, oh, it's this week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the only other one that I haven't seen that I would like to see is actually, and Tom Holland's in it as well. Uncharted, based on the
Oh, that's
video
right.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually wanted. I actually would like to check it out, and I think it's supposed to be like a prequel story of the character, so it's kind of like his early days of. And I don't know how much you're familiar with Uncharted, but
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but
okay,
not super familiar. But
okay, but yeah, I am interested in checking that out. So
okay, so I think that's probably enough time dipping our toes in, right? Maybe it's time we take a little cannonball into the pool here. Uh, and it's actually a good segue talking about pools, because there was a
I was just about to say, yeah, that's very appropriate, very appropriate.
there's a certain NCAA competition for swimming that happened recently, for women's swimming particularly. It's been in the news a lot. Leah Thomas has someone that has come forth as a transgender person and is now competing in this event as a woman with these other women, and has blown them all out of the water, as is to kind of be expected for someone who does that in his stature compared to other biological females. So
Correct, correct.
it's kind of what do you expect here? So this has been a lot of controversy going around here, a lot to be said. So I really wanted to dive into this topic with James here. So James, what's your thoughts? When did you hear about it?
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, as a conservative, a conservative Christian, I really try my best to rely on a lot of conservative news and things like that. Like even with the Daily Wire, I pay every year a specific fee so I can have access to everything that they offer
Sure.
throughout the year. So and they're actually coming up with a lot of stuff. Their own set of movies, all this stuff, daily shows from different people that Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, all these very sharp
We're
conservative
not
minds.
sponsored, I swear.
But and I really enjoy them. But something that each of the and a lot of other groups as well that are conservative news that I listen to, everyone's been addressing it is the Leah
Yeah.
Thomas situation, and we all for a lot of us, even on the right, I'm going to say, there are certain areas that we may disagree on, like maybe Donald Trump and certain policies and things like that. But when it comes to this, I feel like everyone is on the same page, at least from the conservative perspective, that this is unfair, this is wrong,
Yeah.
and yeah, and imagine, even like I don't know, like you have a daughter, like imagine she's disciplined herself to eat a certain way, to work out, to really try her best to she's a teenager, she's disciplined herself with her friends to actually commit herself to a craft, swimming, and somebody kind of glides in who, compared to other men, has done incredibly poorly, and then come in and like beat you, your daughter and her friends, you know because physically the person is constructed entirely different than them, and it's just
Yeah.
I don't I honestly I don't know if I'm as bothered by the fact that the person had the audacity to step into this position and go forward with this, or I don't know if it's everyone behind uh that's supporting this. I mean, how did this even happen? So I'm really confused. How did something like that even take place? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, I definitely do not approve. I am a Christian man, and, as you know, and so I can't stand with pretending that someone is one gender when all know from a scientific perspective, objectively, that there's a difference between XX chromosomes and XY chromosomes. If we all die and somebody digs up our bones 10 years from now, after we're dead, they can tell, if we're male or female. So
Yeah.
that's not really, yeah. So that's not really a discussion or debate to me. But yeah, I'm actually troubled. Why is our society, or at least some of us, entertaining this kind of behavior? So that's something that I'm really disappointed. I'm going to say I'm disappointed in. You know.
Yeah. I think something to get out of the way first that's important is that like First of all, I'm not sure exactly where in the Bible it talks about, transgenderism, if it does at all. I know it's very specific on like God created man and woman, and there's not much, in between, and it's very clear on other parts. It's like marriage and everything, and what perversion is and how it is sin. Um, I want to get out there that it's not like a judgmental thing. We're all sinners. I think that's a good message to spread too, where it's like, and it's all the same in God's divine, perfect, morally perfect eyes, right? Someone stealing something and then someone, you know, committing a murder or something else, it's all like the same to someone who's morally perfect. So we are all sinners, and that's not to say I just don't want to judge other people's sin versus others, right? That's not what this is about. I'm simply trying to say and talk about it is something that is sinful. Typically, when you talk about these things, can you go into kind of I guess because you kind of did some labeling, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm a conservative, I'm a Christian. This is why I think these things. Do you always kind of think like that, where it's like this is
Black and
my
white?
what would you say?
Black and white?
I guess, but more so just like this is I'm conservative and so I believe all these things and that's kind of why. It you don't have. I mean, I'm sure you do have a more personal reason to why you believe what you believe, but is that kind of your go-to where it's like I'm this label and this is because of that I support that?
You know what? I mean, when it comes to my opinion about, for example, uh, what's the best pizza topping? Okay, that would be something that is subjective.
Okay.
Okay, you and I are entitled to, for example, for me, I love meat lovers. I love pepperoni and sausage. Okay, to me, there is nothing better than that. To
Yeah.
me, so to my understanding, when it comes to subjective opinions, yeah, they can shift, they can change. They're based on preferences. You may have a different, it's the same thing with our taste in vehicles or all these different things. But when we're talking about morality, when we're talking about reality, well, now that's not subjective. Now we have to rely on an objective standard.
Mhm.
Now, yeah, and we have 7 billion people we share, over 7 billion people we share this planet with. We can't ask everyone's opinion on morality, and we could potentially get 7 billion different answers. But there is, you and I know that there is an objective standard that already has defined, and transcended our opinion, and that is God's objective standard of morality and justice. And so God's word is supposed to be the foundation for me as a Christian, as a conservative, as a man. Um, that is my go-to when it comes to morality, when it comes to
Yeah.
justice, when it comes to reality. But yeah, these other areas, like even my label as a man. When I say I'm a man, I'm assuming the person I'm speaking to can define, oh, he's a man, therefore he
Yeah.
has this and that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's important. It's important. Words, are important. They have certain specific definitions that represent certain things. So when I say conservative, a person may say, oh, hey, he's obviously conservating traditional marriage. He's conservating the family unit. He supports that. And the same thing with Christian. I would hope somebody would know that the Bible is my authority, not how I feel on a Thursday or a Monday, or
Yeah.
it's God's word. Because my feelings can change and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's important to have these, and I call them titles or but it's important to make language important. It's the same thing with how we would identify somebody who is transgender. What if I told you right now that I identify as a woman? It's like, okay, so from here on, how would you choose to refer to me? You know,
Yeah.
now you could say, well, James, since you identify as this one, I'm gonna use the pronouns that you prefer, or you could say in reality, and you could say, well, regardless of what you think, James, you're a man.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah,
for that specifically, it'd be hard for me because I've known you for so long. We've talked so long,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you are a man, and I've referred you
Okay,
as such for so long. It'd be hard to
okay.
switch on the spot. It'd definitely be hard for a
Oh,
while.
oh,
I
I mean,
think
it could happen. I mean, who knows?
yeah,
You know.
and I think in a general sense, if you meet someone on the street, I have a general nature to kind of keep the peace and
Okay. Okay.
let's get
Got
everyone working for the same team. There's no need to be
Hey,
on opposite sides. So
got
absolutely, I'll be respectful if you make that stuff known, right? I think if I meet someone on the street, it's going to be what you look like, what I can tell, right, visually. Some people are better than others, but as far as like referring to someone and having people change the way they talk to people, yeah, I don't think you can change the vernacular we use, especially for, like you said, when there's an objective standard of biological male and female, right? And a question, I think you were getting to it, I don't want to steal your thunder, but the question that's been kind of roaming around the internet is, how do you define a woman, right? How do you define a woman? Um,
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
I
Oh,
first heard that from Matt Walsh on a Dr. Phil interview, right? That went kind of viral. And I don't want to, I know I guess he's on the Daily Wire or something, but I don't want to sing his praises too much. I saw some tweet or
yeah. Yeah.
something where he said something to the effect of like, we all look at things that we want, but we don't do them. We don't act on these things. And I think he was talking about transgenderism, but he talked about how we have desires and we don't act on them. But then he mentioned like everyone, like he'll say something like everyone looks at a woman and whatever, and then he said like
Mhm.
everyone looks at kids and doesn't do anything. But and then that's like, well, what? So I
Mhm.
saw on Twitter an interaction where people were calling him out for that. So that's a little
Okay.
suspect.
I may have to. Yeah, I may have to look into that.
I can send you that, but then that's not to say someone can't mess up or say something bad. Like, right, we all do it, but
Mhm.
and don't take anyone's word 100%, obviously. But
Okay.
that's just kind of baseline stuff I wanted to say. But as far as like, yeah, there is a biological standard, like you said, XY chromosomes and XX chromosomes that we can see later on. And even now with the new Supreme Court Justice lady that's being nominated, they asked her that, and they asked her a bunch of other stuff, and she said, "I'm not a biologist," right?
Uh,
Um,
Lord help us.
so we got to be biologists now to see if we're male and female. It's kind of where we're
Lord
at.
help us. Uh,
It's just it's tough, man. It's culturally, there's a big
no.
shift, and it's
Uh,
it's just people are like going to all sorts of different things now, and it's weird because I know like historically, right, there have been people or whatever that have these feelings and everything, and that's throughout time and everything, but it's like how much, like, what is reality at some point, like you said, people can identify as a bunch of different things. What is the definition? Because you have to have some basis, like you said, for the majority of people. There's always going to be outliers, but we can't make rules and standards for like the outliers, right? um yeah, so it's definitely a interesting conversation, and people get so offended by it, and it's not so, when you hold something that fiber close to your being, like it's tough,
mhm.
I think to more so the effect of transgenderism, I guess. And I mean, I don't have many transgender friends, first of all, so I can't, I'm gonna say what I say from what I believe, but it's like, I'm just upfront. I don't have that many access to people like that. I don't have that many conversations, and I know I watched Dave Chappelle's special recently, right? And he's always getting a bunch of flack for talking bad about them. But if you actually watch what he's saying, it's coming from like love. It's not like a hostile thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then his whole thing has been that like all these other communities are getting more protection in society than black people. Where it's like we all just forgot about that, right? And it's so how is
Yeah.
so I think he brings up very good like topics and like lines and ideas about the whole subject, how it's kind of gotten crazy where like they're the ultimate uh protected class in society, that there are protected classes, and that's not, right. We're supposed to kind of all be on the same playing field.
Mhm.
um, but kind of as far as like the root problem, what I'll say, just to get my spiel out there, and I just want to say that like I think it's some problem of like self-love, right? Self-love
Okay.
is a universal struggle that everyone throughout history kind of goes through.
Mm,
Everyone struggles with it and has a journey to find that. And some,
mm,
unfortunately, some don't. Some suffer from depression. Some take their lives and everything. It is committed, like it's responsible for the taking of so many lives throughout history. It's such an important part of your foundational upbringing and in your foundational like personhood, right? It's a journey everyone goes through, and it should be focused on. It should be prioritized. You need to be able to look in the mirror and love yourself. sure, you don't like where you are, but you accept that you can change that and like get to like make actionable daily steps to improve your life, right? But
Mm.
still having love for yourself every step of the way, right? I'm pretty heavy right now because I college football and everything. I was an old lineman, but I know that I can be fit someday and I can be healthy, and I plan to get there someday. But that doesn't mean I don't love myself now, right?
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
I think you can love yourself and still have a chance to improve, right? But what gets
Mm.
hairy is like seeing other things as answers to problems when they're not, right? Like finding a quick solution. I'm going to feel better because I feel like a woman to become a woman. And that's, somehow we've made it available now when before it
Mm.
wasn't possible, right?
Mm.
So I think that's just, I don't think it's good that we have that option, right? Like before you had to like sit down and like introspect and meditate and figure out your problems and why you feel this way, and learn to love yourself and live with it, right? And still be a productive member of society. But now it's like we can do almost anything, and the suicide rate of transgender people is like sky high, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it
So
is.
clearly it's not a solution, and that's not, I haven't met many people, I'm sure there are plenty of transgender people that are happy and more fulfilled, and that's great, power to you. But I think there's certain lines, like this is me having a social conversation, we can talk about these ideas philosophically, theoretically. I think there's a point in society, and it's terrible because we're inching closer and closer to this, and I think there's a point when it needs to be stopped. Like there's actively damage that is being done to society. And, we can talk mentally and philosophically all day about this, and I'd love to have that conversation. Please reach out to me. But I think it starts endangering society when you start introducing it to young children.
Mm.
When there's people that kids are very impressionable, right? They're gonna do whatever you tell them to, essentially. Like if you keep convincing this person that they're a girl, they're gonna like say they're a girl sometimes. Even me, like there's photo evidence. There was one Halloween I went as a witch because my brother was doing Harry Potter, right? That doesn't mean that I wanted to be a woman, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I was still like, let them express that stuff, as their kids, and find out where they fit in society. It's not to say that boys can't play with girls or whatever and have their sister dress them up, put makeup, whatever. Like it's not gonna kill the kid or anything, but
Mm.
don't like constantly, are you sure you're a boy, are you sure you wouldn't want to be a girl? Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah. Yeah.
reinforcing this like this insecurity. Like it's not okay to be what they are. And when you're going that route, what are you saying? That it's not okay for there to be effeminate men, and it's not okay for there to be like tomboy girls?
Mm.
We have these roles in society. Everyone is different. Everyone leans different ways, but
Right.
that doesn't mean you can we just change our biology. You know, it's
Right.
perfectly okay to live your life how you are and be into the things you're into and act a certain way, but like you're still a man or you're still a woman. You know what I'm saying? So for sure, very dangerous with, like I said, I think the kids thing is where it kind of crosses a line, and then also like literally putting hormone blockers on kids. It's awful. It's affecting their development, and when they can't even choose something, right? They don't know what they're doing. That's a lifelong decision, and they're making it without, with either ill guidance or not the proper guidance, right? So
Mm.
I think
Mm.
that's very harmful to society. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
go. Sorry,
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead. There's another one I
no,
have.
no, it's okay. No, no. Actually, I actually want to hear more of what you have to say, but I just have to say that, for me, if I was to express something like this, yeah, sure, it can have some influence or impact, but I love the fact that, you being a father, like it means something entirely, at a different level. Like this is not
Yeah.
a theoretical idea for you. This is like your reality.
Yes.
This is your reality. I mean, just in a few years, you may decide with your wife to decide, um, I don't know, homeschooling. I don't know what direction you guys are, public school, but yeah, this is like a concern. It's already literally on the front lines right now, so it's something you actually have to think about like right now,
And deal
so
with.
I
Yeah.
love, yeah, yeah, because yeah, this can potentially be an issue. Like even if, your daughter necessarily doesn't drift into this, but her friends will, and it's like, how do you address that? How do you address
Yeah.
that? So I love hearing your thoughts about this because yeah, this is not like a theory. This is actually like something that you have to
Relevant.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah, for you, especially for you, especially.
And that's a big topic to get into as far as the kids thing. I was kind of bringing it up as a side thing, but it's huge, right? Our main
Right? Yeah.
thing here is my
Yeah.
second point, where it kind of edges over to harm in society versus just a philosophical discussion and self-love and something we need to work out personally, into where you're damaging others and the reputation of our, and every, not reputation, but like, you know what I'm saying, like it's a
Yeah.
damage to society when biological males are allowed to compete against biological females in sporting events. This is one of the more recent, like I said, the Leah Thomas thing is the most recent event of it, and he was this guy who transitioned into a lady, and he was a swimmer athletically and for college, and he competed at the, I think, championships, and he beat out all the females by a wide margin because he's a really like biologically a male and he can
Right.
physically, like there's no
Right.
chance that
Right.
they have. And even the other female athletes afterwards, they all went on their own podium, the three of them, and they took their own picture, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
it's just it's unfair, you know, and I don't want to, you know, it's not, I'm not trying to attack the guy or anything. It's just that like it's literally unfair for them. They have no chance. And this is it's more recent, it's more relevant right now, but it's it's less of a problem, I think, because before there was instances of, you know, male to transitioned into a female person, boxing or in a fighting
Oh
event
yeah.
against women, right? And it's just, it's like an excuse to just beat on women, and like you look at how it is and like, yeah, no way the woman's gonna win. That's awful. It's just a man beating up women in that
I've
arena.
watched a few of those fights, and sometimes it's interesting to see this professional kickboxer or boxer, female, wailing on this guy, biological guy, and the guy's taking the hits.
Yep.
He's taking the hits, going through, and I'm just thinking this is just terrible. It's just crazy how we had this first wave of feminism that I actually agree with. The first wave, when it first started, I understood, I felt like there were some actual things that needed to take place in society where women needed to get acknowledged and, opportunity. I agree with that, but now we're on third, fourth wave and, and just what's happening today. I almost feel like I'm not sure if I'm disappointed, and I said this earlier, with the men that are transitioning to quote unquote females and doing this, or the people that are entertaining this and allowing them to do this.
Yeah.
Because if I told you, I'm Superman and I'm wearing a cape and I'm going, it's like it's one thing for me to say that, but if everyone else is going along with it, it's like what's wrong with all of you? What's wrong
Yeah.
with all of you? So, yeah, and this is something Ken brought up a lot in a lot of her conversations, because as soon as she became a parent, she realized that like already she was fighting certain battles, but when she became a parent, everything became like on the front lines
So
for her.
much
Like
more
she realized,
relevant. Yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah, and when she speaks even on her show, I get it now. I get it. Like now she doesn't have the option to be quiet. She has a child in this world. She has a child. Like everything has changed now.
And that's what I'm saying. There's a certain, and I said at the beginning, like when I meet people, I'm like, let's all be on the same team. No need to argue. We can get on the same side. I try to be the deliberator, right?
Yeah.
Negotiator, and get everyone
Hmm.
going the same way and resolve problems. But there's a definite line that is crossed from like discussion and staying civil to like you're actively, hurting, I guess kids being grown up, or ladies and women in that field, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and it's just it's sad to see that like so much of society is like, we're so hyper tolerant nowadays. There's no, and it's because there is no objective moral standard, right? It's not popular to have an objective moral standard.
I'm telling you.
Everything is just like everything anyone does is okay, and now we have
However you
people,
feel, however you feel, just do it, and
we have
that's
people
reality.
that are like pedophile apologists and like encouraging that
Mhm.
too nowadays, it's crazy. Like, where does the line end? It's there's got to be some type of place where like this is harmful for society. We need to stop. And even if you don't, feel that way, there's like, this is something that I'm comfortable enough talking about, especially because this is one of the more clear results. For
Yes.
the athletes themselves, they see it, and then also just biologically, that man, like, I know he believes he's a woman and he went with whatever process he did, but there's a reason that he beat them so easily and that he will continue to, and they don't have a chance
Yeah.
to win. It's
Yeah.
because he is a man. He has different genes and genetics and everything. That's a fact, you know?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
same thing with the dudes, like in any sport. It shouldn't be like allowed. Like whatever you believe, whatever you think you are, a man should not be allowed to compete against a woman in a competition. Like they're just biologically different. It's not
Yeah.
fair, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
And I saw one of my good buddies from college, Rev Coca. He writes different sports articles and everything, and he's on the Far End of the Bench podcast with my buddy Jimmy Pilato sometimes. We'll put a link to that somewhere. But
Cool.
he posted a interesting take where it's like he feels the same way, where it's not fair, right? But what do we do with these transgender athletes? Do we give them another league of their own? And then that's the problem of like not many people would watch it or do anything with it. Like the female rankings are already pretty low, right? Is it about popularity or is it just about competition? And then do we just have them keep competing with males or like where they're comfortable? He didn't have a solution, and it's hard to think of a solution, but I think, something like, yeah, compete biologically with where you're at. You can feel how you want, but that shouldn't allow you to just become from 400 something place to number one.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's just not. And I'm trying to think. I'm trying to put myself in this guy's shoes, give him every benefit of the doubt. I'm like, okay, if
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
really thought I was this woman, and that makes me feel better, and that I won't, it helps me with my self love, my depression, or whatever. But I love competing. I love swimming. You built your whole life like, sure, I get it. I understand wanting to keep being an athlete, and it's hard. Like, it shouldn't be taken away from you. But I think you yourself need to realize your advantages. Like, I'm not sure if he's just blind to that or if he hasn't
Mm.
considered. I'm sure he has. I don't want to assume that he hasn't thought about this stuff. He must have,
Mm.
right? But as far
Mm.
as like, how can you be okay with that though? Because it's not a real victory, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
It's not.
I mean, why you won that way, and maybe like you can identify as a woman, but like still compete with the males where you're supposed to be, so that you know where you are adequately, right? So I'm not sure, and I don't want to pretend to understand his reasoning, but like I would just think like this is like I said this, and then when it comes to targeting children with this ideology, I think is where it steps over the lines of peaceful civil conversation and debate into actual harm for society.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one thing I was going to say is that, and you brought up a good point because I've never really entertained the idea of thinking about this as much. But yeah, I don't really know his story. I don't know what he's going through, or what even caused him to even transition and even think of entertaining the idea of supposedly being a woman. But obviously, there's something going on there,
Yeah.
and I don't think I ever, I've really thought about it. And of course, I know, um, as a Christian man, I understand that we all come into this world with a sinful nature. This is like just a godless, idea of just like doing our own thing. We want
Yeah.
to do our own will. Yeah, and so the idea is for God to intervene in that and create, us, the people that He intended for us to be, and that's why we change. This is why, but if that change doesn't happen, yeah, you're going to dig yourself deep in these holes emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, mentally. And yeah, I don't know his story. I don't know what's going on with him. I'll be honest. I mean, I've kept up with a lot of um, stories of transgenderism, and there's a lot of sexual assaults when people were small. That
Yeah.
there's a lot of that. And you mentioned the suicide rates, how high it is. I'm really surprised no one is mentioning that, because it's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah,
He,
but I was just going to say that, yeah, it's just obviously there has to be something behind the scenes with this guy, because yeah, obviously it's like, and I don't know. I mean, I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe after this podcast, I'm going to check out and see if I can see Leah, on some just some being interviewed. I would
maybe
love to
hear
see
from
like
her,
the
or
mindset.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
and
Hmm.
and that's the thing. And yeah, you mentioned the suicide rate and everything, and the thing I've heard a lot of times is the suicide rate is so high because they are so oppressed, so picked on, so made fun of in society, right? And I mean, you can look at that, but I don't think it's very, very based, right? There's tons of people that are picked on even more in society or whatever, right? But then it's not adequate numbers. It's like only that specific people, and it might be, I don't know. I don't want to get crazy and be like, oh, mental illness and stuff, and we need to
Yeah,
put them
yeah.
in electric chairs, and they need, like that, all that horrible
Lobotomy,
stuff. Yeah, yeah, all that
lobotomy.
horrible stuff that happened back then, where it's like you need,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
um, that's not what I'm trying to say. It's definitely a conversation to be had, but like I said, I think in society we're getting too far in it, where it's actively hurting people now. You know.
I would agree. I would agree. I would
um,
agree.
and yeah, about like hearing his story, I think it's important to just give everyone benefit of the doubt, and I want to know that side of it, right? I'm open to hearing it. I just this is kind of where we stand as where we kind of have to stand with our moral standards again, but there's definitely sympathy. There's empathy there. I feel something's wrong. I feel for you as a person, as a human. I don't want you to feel left out or unincluded or anything. But like it is like just fundamentally wrong to compete against women in that nature. Like it's not a right victory. It's not just.
Agreed. Agreed. Agreed.
Is there anything else about this topic you wanted to get out?
No, no, I actually think we covered a lot. I mean, if I was to go any longer, I would just be repeating basically and
Yeah.
reinforcing what I already said because
S-
yeah, it's just unfortunate.
There
I kind of feel like yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
there is something to be said about not just the suicide rate, but just about it affecting kids, right? And a lot of talk and everything was happened recently about, I guess Texas had a new bill that is enforcing like it to be reported if someone is being encouraged to be a trans kid or something. I'm not sure the whole thing. I haven't read the bill. I just heard the outcry from people
Okay.
on Twitter. Someone was saying it is a genocide of trans people is happening right now, and no one's looking at it right. They're hated by all society and everyone, as if they're being killed or something, or and it's not.
Mm,
I don't think
mm,
that's not what's happening. It's just I think it's something like I said. I think it stems from the problem of self-love. You don't accept how you are as a person, as a body, something you can't change or you couldn't change so long in your life before. In history, we
mm,
couldn't change it, right? There's certain things that are out of your control that you need to learn to live with and
mm,
then thrive
mm,
with
mm,
and then love yourself and become the best version of yourself with, right? Certain things you can't change. I can't change the color of my skin. You can't change the color of your skin. We need to learn to accept these things and live like not have it hold us back and not look to change it, but to thrive with it, right? Um
mm.
so with that, it's like, yeah, it's not so much that they're being oppressed or anything. It's not a genocide, but and it's just I don't think it's right to teach that to kids. And there's definitely people already like on TikTok I've seen and other things. There's teachers that are like, oh, I love it when kids come forward with their sexuality with me or whatever, and it's like that shouldn't be your role. You're an instructor for a lesson or whatever. You shouldn't,
Yeah,
you're not
yeah.
you're not someone to encourage. And there's already like stories of people like encouraging the kids to like keep it secret, come to them for their meetings and not tell their parents about it, right? Like, how do you feel?
Mm.
Like, do you still like that whole ideology is toxic. It's bad. It's confusing to children, and you might convince a kid to take these hormone blockers that will then just harm their development for their whole
Yeah.
lives.
Yes,
It's
yes.
awful.
Yeah, it's really we live in a crazy world, but and honestly, Tim, um, I used to get a little wrapped up with a lot of what was happening in the world, and I mean, I still get involved with the discussions and learning, and I'm just soaking in the news literally every single day or every other day of what's happening, what's new with our United States government, what's happening in Congress, what's happening in the judicial system, like you name it. Um, but one of the things that I always have to remind myself as a Christian man is that the key to all of this is really the gospel. We come to this world with this fallen nature that we're going to have these convoluted, distorted views on everything. And even me, I mean, even the covenant of marriage, I used to think was one big joke. I just thought, why would some guy imprison himself for one woman? And like once upon a time, I thought about this, and I thought it was some type of government thing to kind of keep the sheep, in line and that kind of stuff. Oh, let me just pair these guys together. It's easier to manage you guys, with the tax program and everything else. And I realized that no, it's not a government thing. God established that.
Yeah.
God established the marriage covenant. It's not good for man to be alone. I'm going to make him a helper suitable for him. Genesis 2:18. God made marriage, and so I realized that it's the gospel that has to um, be, set forth, and God is the one that is going to use that to intervene and change a person's heart. And but if that doesn't happen, this is what the world we see around us is why these things are happening. This is our fallen nature. In our fallen nature, it's okay to you know have multiple sexual partners. In our fallen nature, it's okay to abuse children. In our fallen nature, it's okay to use uh, you know destructive and words to tear somebody down. It's okay. It's okay, and we'll justify it in our minds because we don't have we're disconnected from our creator. But this is sort of why it's important to make sure that we're part of these conversations, and we're doing what God desires, like raising our family, in a godly way, but also sharing the gospel, because that's the only thing that's really going to change. We should get, in the political arena and be involved in these discussions, and vote and things like that. But
Yeah.
it has to be the gospel ultimately that's going to change, because other than that, we're just going to be broken people that's just kind of on the hamster wheel, going around in circles, doing, burning energy and going nowhere.
Yeah, no, we for sure, as a society, we are morally bankrupt. That is a problem, absolutely, and it influences all these things. And the other thing you mentioned a while ago was that like a lot of these things, transgenderism happens because of a child, like a child molestation thing or like some type of abuse like that, right? And same
Right.
things with a lot of gay people and everything. That's kind of how it comes about.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so the line is like accepting gay marriage and everything, and then accept like, oh, I was turned this way, right? So it's okay, it's valid, right? And then it's like you're just acknowledging and agreeing with child pedophilia and like abuse, and that's not
Yeah.
okay. We can't as a society
Mhm.
accept that. That has to be a moral standard
Mhm.
where it's like that's not okay, and that is the root of a lot of these problems.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's not. I don't sit here have many solutions for you, right? And
Yeah.
I can preach the Bible and the gospel all day. There's still going to be sinners every day, and we're still sinners
Mhm.
and everything.
Mhm.
It's not going to
Mhm.
necessarily change drastically what's going on, but just whoever is listening, right? Just recognizing the importance of that and like living our own lives justly as much as we can. We're imperfect, but striving for perfection and encouraging others to live the best versions of themselves as well. That's kind of the lesson we can take from this and just put into society and let those roots kind of take care of themselves. And I think when you start a family or when you start a group or whatever, as long as you as a leader in any facet have these kind of questions, you don't have to have answers, but you have to have thoughts and like processes, right? You have to have thought about this and and consider a moral standard. I think that'll do well to guide you throughout anything you do in life. And like I said, on Twitter, they were talking about like most what's the most important problem facing like young men today or whatever. And I had three. It was like fatherless homes, porn addiction, and then moral bankruptcy. And all those things, like it's when it's as a society it comes to be tolerant and accept something so much, it's just it seems like it's commonplace and it seems like it's okay, but it's not. You have to have a moral standard for yourself to and teach it to your children. And as far as the fatherhood thing, right, that's how we fix a lot of these problems through generationally, raising them to have a moral standard, and that'll be the leaders of the next generation, and that's how we kind of fix this problem. It's just morally corrupt and godless nation, and it's tough to think about.
Yeah, man.
And not to say that definitely crusades happened, all that stuff. Like, yeah, not don't be overzealous and stuff and all that, but just you have to have some type of moral standard in your life. That's kind of helps you see through and sift through these different
Absolutely.
societal problems.
Well said. Well said. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So see if we how many followers and subscribers we lose because of that one, right? Uh,
What are you talking about? They're going to be hunting us down. Yeah,
pitchforks and torches, James. Pitchforks and torches.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Um, no, I mean if you're still here, if you're still listening, we'd love to hear from you, right? And that's something a lot of podcasts this isn't one where it's like different opinions every week. Like we agree on a lot of things, we disagree on a few things. We haven't hit
Yeah.
too many on the head yet, but I'm sure we will at some point. Um, and so yeah, please, it's from a place of like love. We're still learning this thing. We're talking about these topics. Like we
Absolutely.
have love for all of God's children. We want you all to just think about these things, right? And reach out to us if you're struggling, have questions. Like we want to help. We're all going through that faith walk and everything in general, so we want to help you out too. Just the walk of life. But so the next thing we got
All right,
on
here
the
we
docket is a shameless plug. James, you have a YouTube channel. You talk about
I
things.
I do.
It's gonna be
Yes,
right
guys.
there.
Yeah. James here. James here. I do have a YouTube channel, Unique Perspectives. I have been really committing myself to just really getting a lot of content out the first 3 to 6 months since I started. I started the beginning of this year, so I'm really going to try to explore a lot of different issues that's going on in just about every area, from religion to societal issues, injustices, philosophies. I even talk about guys with foot fetishes
I was
and
all
all
the way
that.
to feet.
Oh yeah. In fact,
So
those
yeah,
are probably my biggest videos that a lot of people are responding to. I'm getting a lot of attention from those.
sounds
So
sounds great.
I'm like, yeah. It's
The,
barely been a week. It's like almost 400 views. So it's
wow,
yeah, man.
nice,
So it's
nice.
yeah. So it's just but yeah, I really think it's just I would like to put everything on the table. And even though I have a Christian conservative background, I am open to at least discussing things, just as what we're doing here,
Yeah.
and I just think it'd be awesome just to connect with you guys. So feel free to reach out if you want some more information about that. Please, we'll have links up and all that
Yeah.
good stuff.
So links will be, I'll reference it there, and then everything's in the description. Our YouTube channels, all our social media. Reach out to us there. We're posting content. We're talking about different messages. Both of us are. Every different formats to see what we're talking about and see what the topic's kind of going to be like, and then that's how we get our questions too. So just please reach out through the comments or whatever, however you're feeling. We don't have any sponsors yet. Soon we will. If you guys
Not yet,
yeah, not
but we
yet.
will.
Because actually, it's like easier than I thought. Look, going on Anchor, it says that like all the other podcast places that we put it, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Audible, Google Podcasts. By the way, get it there now. Look at it. But the more listeners we have there is how we get first sponsors, and it only needs like 50. It was a lot less than I thought.
That's cool.
So yeah,
Nice.
if you guys are on a
That's
long
very
trip
realistic.
or something,
Okay.
please consider checking us out on those platforms, listening
Yeah.
through. That'll help us out too. Come to YouTube for the little videos, the little clips, and if you want to see it live, right? All sorts of facial expressions and stuff.
We might have to do a live video down the line.
Oh well, yeah, no, we might do a live discussion sometime. That'd be great.
Oh,
Super
yeah.
open to
That'd
that.
be awesome.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
so
really
we don't have sponsors yet. So we're plugging ourselves, right? We're shooting. I don't have any products or anything to sell you, but YouTube, and we got all our links down there. Follow us on social media. Twitter's going hard for me. Getting some new followers on there, doing pretty good. So yeah, all good stuff. Okay,
Sweet, man. Sweet.
so we hit some entertainment. We hit some philosophy. Let's get into
We
some
did?
religion. And we kind and that's the thing, religion's part of all of it, right? You're gonna get that. That's the podcast. But
Oh yeah.
you're going to last time when we got off, it was a big topic I didn't want to bring up because we had to hurry up. It was a quick episode and we already couldn't push it another hour. And James said that this topic would probably take another hour, so here we are. So it's basically the concept of did Christ speak against homosexuality? And we kind of referenced this a little bit already with our other talk. It kind of goes hand in hand with some of the things about transgenderism, with the child abuse and how that stems from it, how it's like a vicious cycle, right? And
Sure.
What's interesting is it's more specific for homosexuality in the Bible as far as it identifying as perversion, right? And I've gone through reading cover to cover the Bible, and almost very quickly, it is quick.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Leviticus
Old
is like
Testament
what,
is
the
like-
third book?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's pretty quick to mention, laying, and it's not just homosexuality, but like all sorts of different factors like incest and other things. These are
Sexual
sins. This
immorality.
is perversion, sexual immorality, and it's against God's foundational law. So I know it says that in the Bible, right? I've read it. The biblical authority, it's there. It's God's word. He put it there. But I found an interesting thread on Twitter by this guy named Cernovic, and he was talking because Dave Rubin, he's a political commentator. He and his are they husband married? Did they get married?
Uh, and I believe that's his husband.
We'll
I'm
go
not
with that.
entirely sure.
We'll go with
I know,
that.
yeah, I know partner, yeah. I know
His
that's his
partner,
partner.
him and his partner, they recently, I guess, adopt. No, it was it in vitro fertilization or was it adoption?
I thought it was adoption. I don't know for
I'm not
sure.
sure,
I
but
thought the,
they basically got a kid or two, right? And
yeah.
so he was quick to point out, like, uh, Jesus never, or it said, even if you assume homosexuality or God is against homosexuality, and then he puts in parentheses, Jesus never said it. He mentions that like the outcry or the plague of like online pornography and everything is a much broader problem in society, and that should be
Mm,
focused as well. And then he closed it by saying, "Also, I hope you're fasting every Wednesday and Friday as is required." So essentially, with that tweet, he's being pretty hyperbolic, and he's saying that like even if you think this is a sin, which he believes, I guess it's not because Christ didn't say it. I'm not sure where he defines his Christianity, but
mhm,
he's pointing out that there are other bigger problems in society that should be addressed, right?
mm.
And that's kind of like where the kind of culture is going. I think the Pope even said, not that he's what we look to, but I don't know if he was okay with gay marriage or anything, but he's basically like a more tolerant,
He's very, yeah, 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 yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's
that's a good word.
and that's the problem. It's not that we're trying to be anti-tolerant, like we love people and everything, but you have to recognize with the moral standard, sin is sin, right? And God makes that pretty clear with his Ten Commandments. And like I said earlier, the level of sin, that's for us to, like it's our fault to compare it. We shouldn't even be comparing it. It's all sin in his perfectly moral eyes or whatever, right? It's all the same to him. So
Mm.
it's not like we're better, anyone's better than anyone else. We're all sinners, and we all should strive to turn away from sin. But I was actually curious. I wanted to ask you because I wasn't sure. I haven't gotten to that part in the Bible. Does Jesus actually never condemn homosexuality? Is there anything in his specific writings where he talks about it?
You know what? I'm thinking of two passages. One passage I do have here is found in Mark 10, 6 through 9. And Jesus, he said, but from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate.
Mm-hmm.
So from a biblical standpoint, and this is just one text, but this is something specifically Jesus shared. He made a distinction that there's a male and there's a female, and putting them together, that would be, that's
Marriage.
essentially, yeah, that's marriage. He's it's very clear to me, but I know that we live in a world where it's like, hey, well, he didn't specifically say, and yeah, so I wouldn't write something like this off. Like this is the words of Jesus. This is somebody that we know that, um, claimed to be, the Son of God. He is God manifested in the flesh, and he came 2,000 years ago to clearly share, for example, this concept with us, and it's not something to blow over and say, okay, well, yeah, Jesus, I hear what you're saying, but you didn't specifically say homo. He's already laying out there. There is a difference between a male and a female, and putting them together is essentially marriage, the covenant that God has established, and
Yeah.
and for male and female to be, one flesh. What's interesting is that Paul, I would say, if anything, wrote 13 books in the New Testament. He's the one that clearly addressed it over and over again. Even Jesus' half brother, Jude, made reference to it as well. And he had a very interesting take on it. He says in Jude 1:7, he says, just as Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities, which likewise indulged in sexual immorality and pursued unnatural desire, serve as an example by undergoing a punishment of eternal fire.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Jesus' half brother, Jude, um, sharing this, and he's just saying that, God, this is the exact, I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with Sodom and Gomorrah, but these were two cities, obviously, that were very deep in sexual morality. And we even see in the book of Genesis that angels actually physically came to the city, and the people were so corrupt and so deep in their sin, their sexual morality, they tried to actually have sex with the angels.
They
So it was
they
that
literally
bad.
like a group of 30 dudes was knocking on the door, give them to us so that we may know them carnally, was what
Yeah,
it said.
right. Yeah, yeah. So
And it's pretty messed up because the guy, I forget what's the guy that they're staying with.
Lot.
I guess it's yeah, I forget his name, but Lot.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he actually
Abraham's.
like, no, take my daughter or take some or my
Yeah.
servant instead, right? And
Uh,
that's clearly not, okay either, but it's like yeah, there's a
it's
couple times when it references like sexual perversion, like a group of people that are just
yeah,
demanding
yeah.
that, right? And there's a couple
Yeah,
times that happens in the Bible. It's crazy.
yeah, it is. It is, and that's it's just but yeah, it's just interesting because we live in a time where people will have access to the Bible. They'll be have access to reading what the Hebrew language actually says specifically, or the Greek, and it's almost like they're not interested in knowing what it actually says. It's almost like trying to parade around it, and they don't want to actually you know come to terms with the fact that the Bible does speak that, for example, in First Corinthians 6:9, that no fornicator will inherit the kingdom of God, no swindler, no
Yeah.
idolater, no drunkard, no adulterer, no liar will inherit the kingdom of God. Like not at all, not at all. And so I think that if anything, for us Christians who know better, we're doing people a disservice when we stay silent and we don't warn them. Hey, by the way, you have X amount of years, on this world, and then you're going to face God on Judgment Day. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, but there's a lot of people that have, said, oh, hey, Jesus doesn't say he's really the Son of God, or he's not really God, or there's always people that like to skate around certain things, but that doesn't mean that they're making up a good argument. These have always been arguments ever since even the first century. By the second century, there were people already attacking the Bible, and the apostles had to deal with them. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And what that story we talked about it last time too. But as they're going to Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham is like it. Abraham, right? I'm trying to get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Abraham's begging, God or his angels, and I forget if it's like supposed to be God or an incarnate of God, or it's referenced that it's an actual angel. But
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a manifestation of God. It's
okay,
I mean, we would say it was Jesus, but yeah,
okay,
theophany, Christophany.
got you. So he's pleading with these people, like, please, like, don't ruin the whole town. Like, there might be faithful people in there. Like, what if out of the whole town there's like 50 faithful people? Will you still destroy it? No, I won't. Right? And
Yeah,
then it keeps
yeah,
going lower and lower and
yeah, yeah,
lower. And he's like, I know I'm being a bug, but what about just 10 people? Will you still destroy it? No, I won't destroy it if there's 10 faithful people. So it's really a testament to God's mercy throughout that whole thing. And
absolutely.
his ultimate mercy, I feel, and reading the whole Old Testament, it's like I'm getting all this vibe of just like he's doing so much for the Israelites and so much to help them, but like they're still rejecting
Yeah,
him. They're
mhm,
still praising other
yeah,
gods and stuff after a couple of years of their savior or whatever dying, or the leader that he chose for them, like not like after they pass, like, oh, we're back to our normal regularly scheduled
yeah,
programming of sin and debauchery, and God's just getting so frustrated until like ultimately he gives his only begotten son, for our sins. And
yeah,
that's kind of like the ultimate, it's out of my hands now, it happened, you guys are going to be saved, just follow these guidelines, right? Because he realized like it's not going to stop, right? Original sin is rampant. um, there's nothing we can do about it. uh,
yeah,
as far as his tweet specifically, Cernovic's, he said, I think the more thing was like how Christians are quick to finger wag, right? They're
oh,
very,
yes, indeed.
because he mentioned that like it's funny how I'm getting so much response on like these ones, but when I talk about like the Bible or anything else, like all the Christians go silent. So it's like Christians will come out to
Oh,
prove like whatever, I guess, to finger wag, but they won't like
yeah,
in general just like defend their faith or whatever else, right? So I
mhm.
thought that was interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, we should always speak up. That's something that the Bible clearly teaches, but That's actually one of the most neglected areas in I'm going to say um, the modern day evangelical community is
Yeah.
uh, yeah, everyone's pretty content with just working on their faith, and they don't really concern themselves for the faith and the eternality, I'm going to say, of their neighbors, which is like by like we all know the Great Commission, like that's our responsibility to speak the gospel.
Yeah.
Romans tells us the only way a person is going to be converted is by hearing someone sharing it, and so the idea of like it's almost like having your neighbor in a burning house, and you're just looking at them, and they're in danger, and you just say, oh, okay, well, hopefully I'll just pray for them and everything will work out. you know I'll pray for them from a distance, and I'll just live my life, but hopefully they'll be okay. And
Yeah.
but realistically, yeah, we're gonna call the fire department. We're gonna, if we have some type of resource, we'll knock through the door, slam through and try to break the windows. We'll climb up, and if somebody has children, like we're gonna plead with them. So it's the same thing with the gospel. We should be talking to people. We should be pleading with them. We should be presenting to them. Like this world is not eternal. We're
Yeah.
we're on borrowed time. And
What's tough with the homosexuality things specifically, is
Mhm.
that as far as like gay marriage, because his inquiry was very like appalling to me. Because I thought it was like pretty clear, like we said, we references other parts of the Bible where like Leviticus it does say so, right? And even so, you said Paul wrote specifically about it. Jesus mentioned the structure of the marriage, right, which is obvious. And so let's just take that then. Let's stick to Jesus' word, because Paul's word does matter too. Like I think you told me that the people that what's it called, justified Jesus's writings, right, in those books also justified Paul's, right, the same way as the New Testament. And Jesus said something to the effect of Paul is like speaking for me or something, right?
Well, yeah, it was Peter who that actually said
Peter.
Paul's words are considered scripture.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
all that is relevant. Not to, and Paul takes, like James said, actually addresses it multiple times. But even if we're
Oh yeah.
just taking Jesus' word about marriage, right, to speak about gay marriage, right, it's not godly. It's not morally found in the Bible at all. It's actually against that, right? It's a union between a man and a woman. So
Right.
going from that, it's like okay, and then what if they don't get married? They just are together. But then it's also the Bible teaches against living with the same person before marriage. That's also a sin. And
hmm
then
hmm
fornicating is obviously a sin. Sex outside of marriage. So given all of those things, it's all sexual perversion at a certain point. To get to be able to engage in sex and everything, you must be married. And so given that. Uh, the whole homosexual part of it, you won't get to that point because you're not supposed to be married biblically, right? Um, and then I guess what about just if they're just in a relationship, but they're I don't know, not living together, they're
I
not
mean,
fornicating. Like? Because these people, people have these feelings. They've existed throughout society. So what's kind of God's message to them? And I know it's like we're all sinners, right? That's kind of the
mm,
base of it, is that we're just all morally corrupt
mm,
and we all have original sin, and but we can
mm.
still be forgiven and come to Christ, but by admitting He's our Lord and Savior.
One of the misconceptions regarding Christians and non-Christians, I'm going to say in our day, is that because I meet these people all the time. They I'll speak to them and I'll say, well, oh, I learned that and maybe I'm talking to somebody and I'll say, like for example, so and so, you're living with your boyfriend or living with your girlfriend, and that actually violates God's moral law. And
Yeah.
so what they'll do to, try to, in an attempt to refute what I'm saying, is they'll say, oh, well, we're all sinners. And so to them, we're all sinners. So that closes that, And what I have to help them understand is that in the Bible, even the Bible makes a distinction between those that are in Christ and those that are outside of Christ. For example, if someone physically dies, the Bible may make a reference to the Christian is sleeping, but for somebody outside of Christ, it will say that they are dead. So it's making a distinction that somebody's on their way to hell, and that's going to be that. And
Yeah.
somebody is renewed in Christ, and they actually have the Holy Spirit residing inside of them, and they've been bought with a price, and they're separate. And that's the whole idea of sanctification. You are set apart. You're set apart. So that's one thing that I think is important to understand is that a Christian is not. They're not. They're old person, but now they're religious. It's not that. The Bible says that you're a new creation, according to what Paul has written and was inspired to say. We're a new creation. So we do live in this body that is still fallen, but we have new desires. This is why some of us we develop the desire to actually be married and be committed to our partner, and our children as well. It's not because we just naturally develop that, but if we have a new nature, like we have a godly perspective on that now. God is actually sharing His mind with us. Essentially, He's living inside of us, and so we're going to have a different nature. But those outside of Christ, it's completely different. And I'm not insulting them because I was once one of them. I thought I was okay. I thought I was
Yeah.
good. I thought, yeah. But there's a distinction between those that are in Christ and those that are outside of Christ. A person who is outside of Christ is considered, according to the Bible, spiritually dead. They're spiritually dead. So when it comes to spiritual things, they're not able to comprehend these things because they have to be given the Holy Spirit so they can discern and understand spiritual things.
Yeah.
So this is why I am really big to really emphasize to us Christians, we have to share the gospel, because if you're talking to a non-believer, trying to talk about all these biblical concepts, it's sometimes, it's not going to reach them. And it's not because, they're not intelligent, because these things are not an
Complex.
intellectual.
Yeah.
It's not an intellectual issue, it's a spiritual issue.
Yeah.
It's spirit. Yeah.
No, I like what you're saying, and I'm not. I've said it a lot, like, oh, we all sin and stuff. That's not the message I'm trying to convey. I'm
Oh
not trying
yeah,
to
yeah.
say it's okay,
Oh yeah,
More
yeah.
so from your perspective, it's from a sense of I'm not trying to attack the sinner. I'm not trying to attack that person. I'm not saying you're an awful person. I'm saying we've all been there. We all have
Yeah.
original sin. It's all innate in us. What I want to push and what I want to express, and that's why I'm like so uh, preaching about, like, read the Bible every day, because it is literally food for the soul. It literally, once you accept that part of your life and you give yourself to Him, as you said, once you start actually practicing what you preach, and not just going through the motions, right? There's a lot of false converts out there that think they're saved, and there's a verse that you mentioned last week, and my pastor brought it up today, where it's like, we did all these things, and it's like, be gone from me. You never, I don't know you.
Oh yeah.
You
That's
never knew
that
me.
is the scariest, most frightening verse in all the Bible,
Can you
in
give
my
it to us
opinion.
verbatim? Because I butchered it. I don't know if you
Yeah, yeah.
have it.
Actually, I want to make sure I get it right. Let's
Okay,
see
well,
here.
you look it up. I got some more things to say.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
basically, yeah, like, it's not about, it's about, we're all sinners and we can all improve with that, right? And like I said, but I'm preaching the Bible because I've found reading the Bible every day food for the soul, and it helps you stay away from sin and anything else in life, any other vices. It helps you live a good life. It makes you want to intrinsically. You have less desire for these nonsense sins that are self-depreciating, right? That harm you and harm others, right? I used
Mm.
to uh, I used to have a porn addiction. I didn't never thought it was an addiction because I grew up and everyone was talking about it, everyone was looking at it
Yeah,
and
yeah. It's like
everything.
a normal thing. It's like, oh, okay, So
Completely
yeah.
normal of the times.
Mhm.
Everyone does it, but no, you realize not. We can do a whole nother podcast about the harms of that, like
Seriously.
not even spiritually, like just the harms in society and, like, yeah, you as a person, but there is also a spiritual connection to it. And so I found, doing taking these steps and coming to this life and being married, and you know with the Bible and everything, it makes you want that stuff less. It literally helps you sin less. So I encourage all, like, everyone, like, once you actually come to Christ and everything, it actually will help you, what's it called, just have less desire for sin and debauchery and all that. So it's not a sense of I'm attacking you. It's not anything like that. Please don't take it that way. We're all sinners in that sense, and we can all be better, is all I'm trying to say. My main message, not just spirituality, we can all be better, and we should all strive to be better, not just for us, but for those we influence in our community and our children.
Correct, correct, correct. And that's something I love. I love that you address that, because initially with my Christian walk, I assumed that it was still, my thing, like it's me and God, and I
Yeah.
realized that there were people, that I whatever I was saying or doing, I was influencing them. There were people that would come ask my opinion. Well, James, what is your thoughts on this? And I realized like, oh, people are watching me.
Yep.
People are watching me. And so I have to be cautious with how I treat women. I have to be mindful when I'm addressing something, and maybe somebody wants to talk about Tim and Tim's not present. It's like, no, I don't want to engage gossip because people are paying attention to what I'm going to say. If you're
Yeah.
not present or whatever else. But I realize like there's a standard for us. There's a standard for the Christian. There's a standard, and yeah, we can't join in on that wildness. I have the verse here. I found it from Matthew 7:22. It's towards the end of the Sermon on the Mount,
There
and
you go.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it says that many will say to me on that day, this is Jesus, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done many wonders in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. Or
Yep.
some translations say workers of iniquity. And yeah, it's just frightening because there are people under the illusion that because they go to church or they go to the church multiple times a day or they're opening up their Bibles, because cult members do that stuff too. Cult members do exactly that too, and sometimes they know the Bible better than us. You know, so it's frightening to know that there are people that are going to be under the illusion that they've been walking with God, and they're going to meet Christ, and He's going to reject them because they were under the illusion that they were saved and they weren't. And so that's something that I keep just an open mind for when I'm even communicating with somebody that professes to be a Christian. Is you'll learn by some of the things that they're comfortable doing. I don't know if I ever shared this on this podcast, and it's something I actually was going to address on my YouTube channel, but I'm going to address it here. Is there was a guy that was actually involved in uh, the youth ministry, and I was actually somebody taught by him at one of my old churches years ago. And over the years, of course, I started maturing. I became an adult. Me and my buddy befriended him outside of the church, and we started hanging out.
Yeah.
And just a few years ago, Tim, we were hanging out with this guy. We all were deciding collectively that maybe every month we'll just hang out with each other one time, and each of us will alternate which places we go. And I think I chose like a Mexican restaurant, or and we started this process. But I remember one of the times we hung out, he actually had a place in mind that was not too far from his house that had a really good deal on wings and chicken and stuff like that. And
Oh, I love
the
hot
food guys,
wings.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he said, yeah, there's actually a strip club not too far from my house. And
What?
Tim, I'm telling you, Tim,
Huh?
it broke my heart, man. It
Oh
broke my
man.
heart. I tried to laugh it off, kind of in a nervous way, like, oh, but he wasn't joking. He was saying,
Yeah.
no, there actually is a great place, and he said we don't have to focus on the girls, but there's a great place, with wings and all these different, amenities, like really cheap is a good deal. I go there all the time, and it hurt me. It hurt me
Yeah.
because I was thinking to myself, this guy has been teaching children for years, ever since I was little. He was like working in this church, and I just thought, how could they not suspect this about him? And why was he so comfortable talking to us about this? You know? Yeah, and and after he said that, it did change the direction of our relationship. I did, and it was so weird because me being a younger man by almost more than 30 years from him, you know, it was so hard to correct him and say, well, we're not supposed to be living like that. You're a man of God. You're supposed to be somebody that, we're looking to for answers and modeling a Christ-like nature. And he was not happy about that. And, we kind of had to part ways a little,
I
but
don't
yeah,
know,
so
James. Jesus hung out with the prostitutes. Jesus spent a
yeah,
lot of time over
well,
there
yeah,
in
yeah,
those
yeah, and it's
circles.
funny because I've had people argue that, and I have to say, well, he wasn't like, chillaxing and Netflix, he was ministering to them,
Yeah.
you know, ministering to them, and but yeah, it was just but it really put this into perspective. This guy was under the impression he's walking with the Lord. He's been with God for supposedly for more than 50 years. And, his thing was, hey, let's go to the strip club, and he's like this older man. I'm thinking, what's going on?
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So it's just really, but yeah, yeah. I'm glad you acknowledged the false conversion thing, because I think the modern church, we don't really think of that often. We think of, okay, somebody just says they're Christian, then they're okay, and that's not how it works.
No, it's
You have
terrifying to think
to,
about. But the thing to emphasize is that like you can't get to heaven via works, right? There's tons of verses on that you bring up too. It's like it's not about good works. It's about the gospel and believing in Christ. And in the end, we should want to do those good works naturally. And I've experienced this, like I said, myself when I actually devoted, when I actually took my religion seriously and I gave myself to Christ and went through all these processes. I found naturally and intrinsically that I have less desire to sin, that I have a calling to do these other things and reach out to these other people and help. And so that's speaks for itself for my own experience. And
Mhm.
it's different for everybody, but I hard pressed to find someone that isn't like on the right path that can tell you the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing is, that's why it gets a little really tricky, and it's so interesting because I was actually watching one of the people that I really enjoy, who's not only a conservative, outspoken conservative, but also a Calvinist as well, like myself, is Ali Stuckey. Ali Stuckey. So she's with the Blaze. They're a conservative group, and they work very well with Daily Wire and Prager University. They're all kind of collaborate all the time. But yeah, she's a Calvinist as well. But she recently mentioned in one of her groups, well, one of her podcasts, and it was online as well on YouTube. But yeah, she was just addressing that she loves Dave Rubin. She considers him one of her colleagues, but obviously she can't morally agree with what the direction he's doing with because she's a Christian. She has an objective standard that God has already placed not only with the Christian life, but with the world. The Ten
Yeah.
Commandments is not exclusively for Christians. And yeah, so it's just but it was just interesting because it's an unpopular opinion, especially with our modern day. But yeah, it's just important to know that there's a difference. We can't pretend like certain things because it's more accepted that it's okay now. God didn't say it's okay, unless
Yeah.
God gave us an update. Yeah, yeah, there is no bouncing back and forth, with that kind of stuff.
Well, how does it work? Because in today's day and age and everything, like I feel like a lot of people would think it's unrealistic to wait for marriage or like on a societal level, right? Like it's just not
Mhm.
happening. It's not like a helpful conversation. The conversation of
Mhm.
abstinence, right? Um, I think maybe the social stigma is that way, but it's definitely possible, right? I'm not going to say it's impossible, and people still do it. I know a lot of friends that do it, but what do you
Mhm.
think of that? Like the cultural relevance, and could we ever get the culture to believe in that? Like, is it still like is it an outdated message? Like, and the people,
Mhm.
I was one of them. I was, we were engaging in fornication before we were married, and we came to Christ afterwards. And in the end, what? So, how do you kind of think that affects not just the homosexual couples, but just people in general? It's all sin, right? So, is it like a message that is kind of lost on today's youth?
I mean, well, first off, let's say, for example, let's say, uh, you're a parent, you already know that you have the responsibility to teach your son or daughter, and instruct them what God says about these things. And the Bible teaches on that, the responsibility that the parents have and the community behind a child. They have a responsibility to instruct that child. And so yeah, I mean, my thing is this, and it's so funny because I didn't think I'd share this, but it was a very interesting situation that happened to me years ago. Is when I was, and I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but when I was around 13, the church that I was affiliated with at the time allowed me to work at my very first job, and what I was essentially doing was working with youth around my age, and I was helping in a class that was teaching about sex and things like that, premarital sex. And so the class basically was with this group that was just going around our community in the Baldwin Hills area, teaching young people about um, basically just avoiding how to either avoiding sex or even just the repercussions of going about it wrong, because people can have diseases. So they're always sharing how to properly put on a condom, all this kind of stuff. But I remember over the years, well, not years, I'm going to say maybe a year or two, I was affiliated with this group, and I would always see these diagrams of male and female genitalia that was infected with certain diseases. And so I'm telling you, Tim, because I've seen this over time, that alone prevented me from falling all the way. That
Yeah.
alone. Yeah. And I think about, and I'm not proposing that, when your child gets old enough, you start showing diagrams. I'm not saying that. But I think it's important to instill this idea to our children that these are the repercussions that happens or can happen if you go about this the wrong way. These are the people. Maybe you can point out celebrities. Maybe you can point out family members that didn't really go about this the right way, and now they're suffering the consequences because it didn't work out. Maybe a neighbor, or even have that person communicate, and talk to your child, and maybe you can, as they get older, you can show statistics. What's the chances of them finding a healthy relationship in the long term if they start off with this, and what certain things they shouldn't be doing with boys, because boys are going to say certain things, as soon as a girl hits 12, 13, guys are going to start noticing her at the mall and stuff like that. It's not going to be a little girl anymore, and
Yeah.
so the idea is to arm her with this information ahead of time. So when she looks at the traits and the guy's, trying to pick her up for a date and he's not even getting out of the car to pick her up, but he's honking, she'll know, oh, this is not going to be my husband.
Yeah.
This guy won't be my husband.
No,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
an interesting way to put it. And I think we have talked about this before, and I said that sounds
Okay.
like child abuse. Like what
Okay.
happened to you, and like what you like that's the reason that you stay away from. I mean, whatever works, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but
Yeah. And let me just add this because I was, I had some people who brought up the fact that, yeah, maybe I was traumatized and maybe that has affected me. Um, and for a while I thought, man, maybe something is wrong with me. Maybe, because it just seemed like it was almost supernatural that I could be with a woman, and, and during these times when I was, unconverted, I just thought, okay, it's okay to, do certain intimate things, but not all the way, But I started noticing over time, I got so convicted that I couldn't do certain things. And now I'm at the point where I'm very careful with not spending time with a woman in an intimate setting now. Not at all. Not at all. And so
yeah,
I know my nature. Just because I'm walking with God and all this stuff and new nature doesn't mean that that fallen nature isn't around. So now I prevent that by not saying, hey, let's go hang out and hug up on your, alone, it's like now I know, okay, that's not, and if I plan on going forward with that, I may as well take her seriously in a marriage,
yeah.
if
No,
we're
I
going
get you.
yeah, yeah. But
I
yeah,
don't.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
I don't know if I necessarily want to go to those extremes. I think I can
Perfect.
get a similar result by just expressing like how detrimental it is, right? And teaching them that like you said,
Hmm.
boys are boys. They have a lot to do before they become men, and they're
Absolutely.
not really worth too much of your time until then, right? Because they're still figuring themselves out. They can't lead others. They can't lead a household or a relationship until they lead
Mm,
themselves, right?
mm,
And so it
mm,
takes a lot of maturing for someone to get there. Not to say that you can't go through it together, and that's what
mhm,
we've done and everything, high school sweethearts since freshman year and everything. But
mhm.
as far as like, I think I'm just gonna stress to her that like there are consequences, right? Like a baby could come from that, and then you're in her family, and then you have to, you know, you're together and you have to make it work. And so much of what advice I've talked about on Twitter and everything, as far as relationship advice, has been about foundations, right? Getting the right foundations and the right similarities with people before you engage in a major relationship, because you're saving yourself trouble down the road with divorce and other problems, how to raise kids and everything. And this is going to come up later with a question, but as far as like that's part of it. If you don't feel like you could marry this person or anything and that you'd be okay with the result, you shouldn't be engaging in that activity. You should be in a relationship, whatever, have smooch or whatever, right? But just know your limits. And it's important to know your limits, because like you said, we are fallen. We can, like, if you put yourself in a
Absolutely.
scenario where you're vulnerable, it's gonna, like, bad things are gonna happen. So kind of remove yourself from that scenario and it's hard to ask younger guys to do that, right? Because you're still discovering it. So I think for a girl, I can just express like the damage that can come from it, right? So just to be smart about what you're doing with who, you know.
Mhm.
I don't really want to go the hyper religious zealot route because the whole
Mhm.
preacher's daughter like being super whatever
Yeah, yeah,
promiscuous,
yeah, yeah.
you
The
know.
PKK. Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
know
so
about that.
that's
Hmm.
definitely something I don't want to encourage, and I'm not gonna show her a bunch of diseases or anything like that. I don't think that'll do her too well. But just expressing the severity of it and the importance of it, um, and I think with the right moral foundation, the moral structure, they can have the wherewithal to withstand all that societal pressure.
No, you have the right idea, and yeah, I mean, and the reason, I personally, I would never recommend, diagrams for children and stuff like that. I was at least 13, I
Yeah,
was at least 13, 14 when, um, and in some weird way, I now looking back at it, I do actually believe that God was involved, and that was an approach he used uniquely for me to preserve me from not really, because just about every guy I grew up with, has, children from multiple women, like every single one, my family
yeah,
included. So I'm the only one I know in my direct group that, um, I'm not living a promiscuous lifestyle, and I don't have, children from multiple women that I've just interacted with. And I look at their lives and I think to myself, man, um, it's just, it's sad because, some of them are on child support. A lot of them are depressed. Their money's getting garnished, like even one of my relatives, I found out, and he has like four children from, but, between three different women. And I just found he lost one of his jobs recently. And I suspect his checks are getting garnished, and I'm just thinking like, uh, you know, if he was instructed, um, I'm pretty sure stuff like this possibly could have been prevented. Is just warnings. So whether they're a boy or a girl, I think very early, I think we should just warn them and talk to them about these different things and stuff like that. It's just very important because and even for me, I mean, I feel like now that I've become so outspoken, like it really helps tremendously. Even when I'm around like an atheist buddy of mine, putting stuff on the table and letting them know where I stand, like it's just everything is just so easy.
it's
It's so
refreshing
easy.
because then you're just holding on to it the whole time, and you want to say
Yeah.
like it's better to get it out, and then
Oh
they'll
yeah. Oh
interact
yeah.
with you or they won't, right?
Yeah. 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 But I just love because it's like giving people the option to say, at least I know what's going on, and not and I want to be careful with my words because I want to use this analogy, but I don't want us to get flagged. But the infamous virus that affected our world, um, you know, but I have a friend some time ago that the job was pushing for her to get the jab, to get and she really was determined not to go through with this. And I remember, for about 3 weeks straight, nearly a month, I instructed her and I taught her about some of the statistics, the adverse reactions,
Yeah.
all these different things, what to say because she was going to get interviewed and they were going to challenge her and say, "Hey, we need you to either do this or religious exemption, or but we need but she needs to be able to affirm with them, how to respond." And I kid you not, every other day I was talking to her for an hour or two, sometimes more or less, and I was instructing her how to answer these questions. And I was giving her different scenarios. What if they say this? What if they say this? What if they say, well, you've been taking medication in the past as an adult or as a child? Why is this an exception? And I challenged her. What does your faith say about this? What is your philosophy? And I challenged her over and over again. And because I was instructing her, Tim, she practically intimidated the person off the phone. The person that was trying to challenge her, like after they talked to her for about 3 minutes, they was like, okay, you know, all right, we'll pass your religious exemption, and
Yeah.
and that was that because she knew her thing. But I love how if you empower somebody with the information, with the knowledge, with the wisdom, they can arm themselves to know how to approach things. So this is essentially what parents, and even me working with kids, like that's essentially my role is like instructing and molding their little minds and letting them know, hey, by the way, these are the repercussions for if you choose to go down this road, and
Yeah.
if you want some evidence, Look at our neighbors. Look at some of our family. Look at some. You know, look, it's right there for you. This is what's waiting for you if this is the route you choose. You know, so just be careful
Yeah.
and cautious with how you know, especially for girls. You know, I mean, they're so vulnerable, man. They're so
Ultimate
vulnerable, looking for
ultimately,
validation and
well, yeah, that's the other thing. It's like that's a whole other conversation. It's like
yeah, yeah,
raising
man.
girls right so that they don't crave that from other people and then give it to people who don't
Man,
deserve it, right? Don't treat
seriously.
them right because they're so
Yeah,
desperate to be validated and loved. That's awful. And you don't give your kids a chance at all these healthy goals and everything when you are promiscuous and you have sex with a bunch of other people, a bunch of different partners, and leave the opportunity to have kids from multiple partners. You're not giving yourself the best foot forward and the best chance you could to foster a strong home and develop good kids and raise them well and with a nice moral standard and improve society. You're a detriment to society at that point, in my opinion. You know, that might that might get me canceled after everything we've said. That might get me canceled.
get him out of here. Delete his account.
But that's my biggest thing. And I actually had a tweet that like went like not viral, but like really big for me. It's like 70 something likes, 30 something retweets or whatever, which for my numbers is pretty big. But it was like there's many a hill I would die on, but the one that I hold like most is like that about 80% of society's problems stem from a lack of fatherhood in the home, right? Whether it's a father that's present but like absent as far as like a leader or emotionally, or just not there at all, it has a huge detriment to the kids, right?
Mm.
So you don't get, and this is for women too, right? Kids need moms just as much as they need dads, but it's you don't give your kids a chance to have a proper upbringing or whatever, like a good raising and good. You start a leg or two back in the race if you're just risking yourself with all these other activities.
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. That's it's interesting you bring that up because I was actually thinking of the next 2 weeks or so focusing on different issues and challenges within the Black community on my YouTube channel, and
Yeah,
that was one of the first ones I wanted to address was father absence because I realized how significant just that alone, how much it dismantles the entire family, just removing the father, and so I actually wanted to address that, and I know it's going to be more on the serious side, but
yeah.
I had and I don't know if I've shared too much about my father with you, but I had him up to the age of 13, and he actually passed away because he was battling diabetes and stuff like
Oh,
that. But yeah, but what's fascinating to me is I had him for 13 whole years, and I watched him, even though he never married my mom, and he was living in a separate place. He was like her best friend. He was always there. Every time I called him, he was always on his way, or he was always after he's done with something, he'll be there. Every Christmas, every birthday, he was always there. He was always taking me out, showing me how to drive, all this stuff. And I seen him even drive the church bus at the time at the church we were at, to help the elderly people in the community get to church. And then he would drop them off, and the church, didn't give him money, but they gave him like a plate of food. They would, make food all the time. And but watching that for 13 years, it did something to me. It did something to me. I noticed that I can't say certain things about women because my father never did.
yeah.
I can't do certain things, or go past certain lines because my father never did. Like I just had him for 13 years, and it provided that sort of foundation. So I'm
That's
thinking,
awesome.
like, yeah. So I'm just thinking, like, for example, your daughter, for example, like she's gonna have an amazing childhood because you're here
Well,
to
that's
stay.
that's the
You're gonna be,
goal.
you're gonna right,
God
yeah, yeah,
willing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I just, yeah. So, but I'm just thinking, I just had him for 13 years, and he affected me for the rest of my life. He provided this foundation. Like I understand certain things because, my father did this, my father didn't do this.
Yeah.
And one of the things that influenced me a lot was on his deathbed, and I wasn't present, but I learned that he regretted not marrying my mother. So in my head, marriage is a priority for me. Before I
Yeah.
leave this earth, I will get married. I will
Yeah.
get married.
That's
I
awesome,
will get
dude. That's such a good,
yeah,
like, beautiful story. And I
right,
know, I
right,
think
right.
you've expressed that, like, he wasn't perfect either. Like, I think you've expressed through
No,
the stories,
no,
like, no one is,
yeah,
but the fact that you got that foundation from him in just 13 years is,
yeah,
telling.
man,
It's telling how
man,
much kids pick up. And
Seriously, man.
for me, it was always like my mom always spoke my dad of like great praises. She never spoke an ill word about him. And when we would always like he'd pick me up once every other month or so to go see a movie, have some dinner, whatever, right? Hang out
Mhm.
for the weekend. And I loved him. He was my hero, right? And so I thought saw all these good things about him. I knew all these good things about him. And then but he wasn't there so much, right? And then so I
Yeah.
saw you when I was younger, and you were actually like chivalrous. You were the only other man I came into contact. Well, my grandpa Lolo was like maybe a little bit, but not outwardly, right? He was the more the father figure in the home at the time that was consistent, at
Mhm.
least. But um, you were the one that came by that was like opening doors for people. Actually, like, because I hear about these things, but I don't see anyone practice it. And you were practicing it. You spoke very respectfully. You almost never cursed. You were very respectful towards women, and you always like opened the door and all this other stuff. And I thought, man, I want to be like James when I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
started
yeah.
dating and stuff. I know I've told you that before.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and so that's it. It was interesting, like seeing that, like how much of an impact that had on me alone,
Yeah, yeah.
and where that got me today, and not to say that, you have to be that way all the time, with women, but always be respectful and everything. But don't be respectful, be chivalrous, don't be a simp. Is basically the goal I'm trying to make here.
Something tells me we're gonna have to address this in a
We
podcast
we
because
might
there's so
because
much to unpack with that,
it's a big topic. Don't get abused. Don't get walked over. Don't be
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
anyway.
We need to have that
We were
conversation for
on
sure.
fathers and gay marriage and um
Just hopping.
yeah, but no, it's vital, right? The father's role in the home and like a positive male
Absolutely.
role model, right? So I
Absolutely.
appreciate you for being that in my life for what you were, and then also going along this route, right, with positive male role models. Wouldn't it be beneficial then if it's two guys and they're raising some children? Wouldn't that family be great, better off, like, right? If
Devil's
fathers are
advocate. I'm
so
not
important.
devil's
I'm
advocate.
just asking questions here, James. No need to bring Satan into this. You keep me away from Mephistopheles' cloven hooves, all right? I'm just trying to ask some questions.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I mean, it's very obvious that God has obviously created men and women with unique strengths and unique weaknesses. And one of the funniest examples I love to give is, for the typical, I don't know, mom and dad is walking down the street riding with their, I don't know, their son or daughter, maybe son, let's just say son, or maybe daughter, but, she's riding her bicycle. She's 3 or 4, I don't know. And, they topple over, they fall over. And, dad is, if dad is responding first, he's like, oh man, whoa, whoa, are you okay? Okay, let's get up and let's try again. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Yeah.
And mom will spend maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes pampering the girl or the boy and kissing and are you okay? And let me see what happened. And 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 it's funny because you have some people that would argue, well, the guy has a better understanding, like, pick yourself up, let's go move forward, let's, and then the mom is like, well, let's
Coddling.
nurture and so yeah, so some people would say, well, this is actually more appropriate, or maybe this is more, but I would say both are
Oh,
both.
both are absolutely necessary.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And so I just feel like we would be depriving a child of those elements if we decided that we wanted to rewrite marriage or rewrite the guidelines and say, okay, God, yeah, we know that you spoke this world into existence and you created everything, but we got it from here. We got it from here. Yeah, you relax.
You take a load off, buddy. You've done great. We appreciate you. We'll take it from here. We'll take it from here, pal.
Yeah,
Why
go
don't you grab
relax.
yourself a beer, get on the
Yeah.
recliner, right? Turn on some football. We got it, bud.
Yeah, exactly.
God help us. That's
Yeah, yeah,
right. If
right.
we anyway, I really have to use the restroom, so we're gonna take a short break, and we will be right back with more of this topic. Okay, cool. I'll be back. Okay, we're back. Restroom break went good. We're here, and we were talking about two male parents versus like two female and a male, and vice versa. James was bringing up the point. I mean, you guys, it's all going to be cut up, so you guys won't miss any of it. But essentially, what I wanted to bring up was that what about a parent or someone who acknowledges both sides, right? Because obviously, first of all, there's not just effeminate men and then more manly men, but just the concept of like if you come at it from a base of knowledge of like you know what the child needs, right? And you understand that, you try to emulate that role as best you can. Do you not, you don't think that could work out? Do you think there's still like intrinsically something that would be missing?
Okay, so are you talking about, let's say, for example, there's no father, so the woman or the mother is taking both roles? Is that what you're?
You could say that. In the example I was giving, I would say for these two dad parents,
Okay,
not necessarily one or the other has to be nurturing, the other has to be demeaning, but
okay.
that demeaning is the wrong word. But um, maybe a parent, let's just say, has the foresight of how they want to raise their kid, and they know they need both sides. They're aware of what they need from both. Could they act out both to the best of their abilities?
I mean, we could try, but I believe from a biblical standpoint, I'll so Jeremiah 17:9 says the heart is deceitfully wicked and desperately sick. Who can understand it?
Hmm.
And so the
That's a good one.
idea, yeah, 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 and it's one of those verses I think every Christian should commit to memory because we have the world out here always saying, hey, follow your heart, and so that's our responses. Actually, that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
You follow God's word. You follow God's word, not your heart, because your heart is going to say some very wicked things.
Yeah.
That it, my heart has tried to, convince me of some crazy things as well, and it's sometimes it's antithetical to what the Bible is saying. So I think that it's possible for a person to try their best to, provide those roles, but ultimately, God's standard and His guideline is already, perfection already. That's how it's designed, to have that parent unit. Now, I mean, I don't want to dismiss anyone, regardless of their sexual orientation. I think there are great lessons that a person can teach, but the correct foundation would be, of course, God's foundation, which is, a male and a female. And again, there is absolutely no like design that is greater than that, and I think that just because we, to some extent, are accustomed to either either single parents or parents that decide to adopt another sexual orientation, it doesn't mean that God's standard doesn't work or it's not the objective standard. So I think it's just something to keep in mind. So yeah, I mean, but even for Dave Rubin, I think he's a very intelligent guy. I mean, been thinking about getting one of his, I think his last book. So very intelligent, and it's funny because like he's always been for years a libertarian, but Candace Owens has sort of convinced him to go over to conservative, which he identifies as conservative now. And but however, a part of my understanding as a conservative is having the Bible as the foundation to conserve these values. So when it comes to his sexual orientation or even the adoption thing, like I don't know how does that align? Um,
Yeah.
because from a biblical standpoint, it's going against what God has already designed.
No, I get what you're saying. I think there is something that's intrinsically always missing there, right? And even biologically, right? It's just straight up, the man can't breastfeed the child and all that, right? Um, so there is that, but I also think like non-physical means, like you said, other things matter as well, like the sternness versus the nurturing aspect. But even like I've found, this might be anecdotal, whatever, my personal experience,
Mhm.
but my wife is so much more eager to cuddle and hold our baby daughter like all
Yeah,
day, even,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Where and I love her too, and I'm telling you, it's like the biggest joy in the world. If you're having a bad day, you just instant joy. You just hold that little
yeah,
baby.
yeah. You're older, and that's it.
But I will elect to put her down more often, and not that I can't, if I need to, I can. But it's like I'm just like, okay, I'm holding her. I love my little baby, and I'll play with her and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I will just put her
Yeah.
down. And the joke is that like, oh, when Tim watches her, like he just puts her down, right? He doesn't. But it's also like might become a problem where, and we've seen some of this. We're not sure yet. She's still a little young, but she's starting to not want to go to sleep unless she's like cuddled up right here, right on the shoulder. So there's
Interesting.
it's a give and take, right? Yeah, it's not just all bad. Like they should learn to self-soothe and stuff. But so I'm always Julie's like, oh, I'm like getting a little. I need to do something. Like, yeah, just put her down. It's okay. You can just right. So I think maybe just intrinsically we have different motives and different things like
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
historically and with ancestry and everything. That's just genetically we
Absolutely.
want to
Absolutely.
act in a certain way, and like my inclination is to like provide and do other things, right? And where hers is like to, take care and make sure she's always okay. I
Yes.
can sleep through the minor, like not if she's crying, but if she's like struggling, self-soothing a little bit and like whining a little bit, I can sleep through that. She
Oh, yeah.
cannot. And I'm a light
Interesting.
sleeper. I'm typically like all my life I've been typically a light sleeper, but
Interesting.
it's it is
Interesting.
interesting. I'm not sure if that's just us. I got to talk to more dads about it, but
Mhm.
that's what I've found. Not to
That-
say I love holding my daughter, I love playing with her, and I need to do that more often. Take breaks from doing my job and providing whatever.
mhm.
Um, and it's this thing of like gender roles and all that. Like I cook most of the meals in our house, right? I just enjoy
Mhm.
cooking and I'll help with the dishes and stuff. My whole thing is like I want first of all, like the idea of servitude, right? Be open to serving your wife and being in the marriage. The biggest thing is like looking out for opportunities to make their life easier and help them and just do things to make them happy, right? And like make my wife's
Amen.
coffee, clean out the coffee maker, make her some coffee, instantly makes her day, right? It's effort in a marriage, right? So like being my whole stance is like she's the mom, she's doing so much already for the kid. What can I do to make her life easier, right? And I guess that's kind of the root of the idea here is like, can someone get away from, I guess, gender roles and perform both or one or the other if necessary, right? And I
Mm.
think we can try, right? But there's definitely intrinsic things that are missing, if
Oh,
not given
absolutely.
the man and the woman. And it's not even, like you said, there's a whole biblical standpoint on it, especially. But, me being a younger Christian, I don't always go to that for everything
Yeah,
or
yeah,
try
yeah.
to.
Yeah, no, no, I totally get you, but no, you bring up a good point, and I think it's good that we address that. But my whole core thing is, your daughter's 5 years old. It's midnight. You guys are sleeping. Somebody charges through your house, kicks your door. You know, your wife is not going to be the first person to get up and go run
Yeah.
towards the. She might go to, you know, your daughter's room, to make sure she's okay, but we all know that's your job. And instinctively, you're not going to have to get a notation to say, hey, by the way, you're the guy. You need to go investigate. It's
Yeah.
something in you that's going to move towards danger.
Well,
You're going to move towards danger instinctively.
yeah. And what I love
Yeah.
about my wife, she's such a sharpshooter. She's so
Uh,
trained.
I was
She would
going to
have a
say that
gun right there. She would be the
they
one.
already read it.
She would.
You know
She
what, Tim?
would.
I got this, Tim.
It's been a while. Mama needs to practice. And my instinct would be to go and just like tackle the guy, physically confront him.
Yeah, well, yeah, of
No
course,
matter
of
what, I'm
course.
not gonna think about things. I'm gonna get my ass shot, and she's just gonna be in the back. Don't worry, I'll save us. Oh, I love that
Yeah,
woman.
it's funny because as I was laying out the scenario, I was thinking, yeah, but she'll handle it a lot
You're laying
quicker.
out the specific
She'll
scenario, but
handle
like,
it.
but
Yeah,
she would though. Love my woman.
I feel so bad for like a criminal trying to go in your house. Like that's gonna be the last house they're gonna be
It's
going in.
not
That's
gonna
not gonna be
work
the
out well
last
for
house.
you. I'm gonna be
I'm
attacking him
gonna,
with like medieval weaponry, and my wife's gonna be with like a sharpshooting thing. I got two giant wooden swords I got at the Renaissance fair that I'm just gonna.
well, there you go. Exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah, but no, it's just I even when I think about the role of a father, I just think it's amazing how especially as you continue to saturate your mind with God's word, and God ministers to you as He's maturing you. It's like second nature. It's like you just naturally know this is my role. I am the protector. I am
Yeah.
and protection doesn't always mean standing in front of a bullet. Sometimes it might be there's a child picking on your daughter, and you need to go to the school and talk to the parents. Like sometimes it's that.
I saw
Yeah.
a hilarious video of this dude at a birthday party, right? And he said this kid
Uh-oh.
had been pushing my daughter over in the bouncy castle for like 10 straight minutes. And so
Oh
it
no.
shows this kid's like on the edge and he just goes up like casually when no one's looking, just
No.
like, yeah, pushes the heck out of the kid and he like flies through the castle.
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
Definitely that more protector role,
Oh,
you
yeah. Oh
know?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's just it's interesting. And I love how God has designed us to and that's that. I mean, not that I want to go back to the Leah Thomas thing, but that strength that God has given us naturally, that is to protect our communities, our families, our
Yeah.
household, our it's not to use to, I don't know, abuse and really rob, women, for example, of their opportunities. This
Yeah.
strength was given with a purpose,
And that's
with a
why it's
purpose.
like counterintuitive to the feminist movement even because it's
Right.
taking all the benefits and the like
Like going backwards, right?
oh,
Don't get it. I don't.
let us men handle these competitions. You guys can't do it. I'm a woman now and I will be deadlifting 1,000 pounds.
Yes. Yes. It's so sad and I feel for women because it's like, many of them, like first wave feminism, they're trying to fight for rights. And it's like, well, yeah, it's like everything's backwards,
Yeah.
you know? It's crazy. It's really crazy.
For sure. And then
Yeah.
also with like the natural fatherhood different urges and inclinations like I don't know if I've talked about it here but I've definitely tweeted about it or talked to you about it maybe personally but I've never felt a more strong urge to provide and get my life together than when I knew I was going to have a kid when I knew I was getting
Yeah.
married, you know?
Yeah.
A stronger fire has never been lit under my butt, right? I've
Oh, yeah.
always known the path to success, the path, well, not the path to success, but the path to self improvement, what I need to do to be a man and everything. But I
Hmm.
never put such emphasis on it and such like actionable steps and actually taken time to meditate and improve than
Mm.
when, I found out I was going to be the leader of a household.
Yeah.
So it's like this supernatural motivation that came onto me that I was like, I need
Wow.
to get everything done, right? And it's not always lasting, right? It'll come in different bursts, but it was just an awakening to me, you know. It's like
Yeah.
okay, time to be a man now. Like I'm done. Was in college, football athlete, everything. I had my fun, I was a, still a boy for a while, and that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
cool. But it's time to grow up and like take care of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I love this arc that I'm in, my character arc.
I love that you described that because I have somebody I know, a guy that I'm very close to, and he's in the process of really figuring that out because for him he's always kind of winged it, as a bachelor, as a person who's
Yep.
kind of hopped here and there, and he might live in Vegas for a year, and he might be out here, and whoever he wants to hang out with on their couch, and now he kind of put himself in this position where he's impregnated a lady that he was seeing, and he's realizing like all that stuff is out the window. Like he understands now. He's actually going through it right now,
Yeah.
and yeah, and unfortunately he hasn't really provided his family as of right now that that foundation to kind of build on, so there can be a household, there can be some type of functioning, so he's actually like working from scratch, and it's just interesting because I can see him almost maturing by the moment because of this situation. And we're 3 months
Yeah.
in, so yeah, about 6 more months we're expecting this child to arrive. And but it's interesting. It's interesting because uh, it's interesting to see his conversation change even with me. Like I can see his priorities are almost being aligned differently. So it's very interesting to see because I've seen him and he was winging it, and now it's like his mind's in a very different place.
Absolutely. Like that's the problem. Like everyone kind of just goes laissez-faire with it, right? Just flows through life and does their own thing, which is a lifestyle. Like people live it. Sure, go ahead. But like ultimately, you come to this point where you got to like make some decisions and figure things out, right? If you leave yourself open to that, you don't make a plan, like you have a general idea, but you don't really put effort into becoming that person,
Mm,
you're never going to get results, right? And I
mm,
talk about this a lot on Twitter, is where like everyone has uh, I guess a level of like a bullshit meter, right? Like what they'll allow. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
everyone has like how much they'll tolerate with
Mm,
themselves, right?
mm,
If you're getting picked on a lot, like there's a line that after a certain
yeah,
point you're gonna stand up for
yeah,
yourself.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
you're, just fat and out of shape and you hate the way you look, there's a certain point where you're gonna do something
Mm.
about it. There's only so
So
much in your
true.
life where you'll tolerate it, and then you're actually gonna do something. Everyone's line is different.
Yeah,
Everyone's line
yeah.
is different. No one can tell the other person what theirs is. I can only encourage you to make it sooner than later because life is finite. It is so finite, and you never know when it
Seriously.
can be taken. And until someone close to you is taken like abruptly, you don't understand the abruptness of it. You've shared
Yes.
statistics where like how many people die an hour a day? Like
Yeah, yeah. 150,000 every 24 hours
it's
worldwide.
it's insane.
Every 24 hours. Yeah, man. Seriously.
So
Seriously.
start living the life you want to live. Stop putting it off. You're only hurting yourself. And I said, don't put off the best investment you'll ever make. Right.
Mm, mm.
So follow me on Twitter for more thoughts like that. Link in the description.
Hey,
Uh,
there you go.
but yeah, so with that, it's also I had somewhere I was going with this. Go ahead though. You were talking about
Oh, yeah, I mean it's just it's interesting because I and even as a bachelor, I know for a fact that in my mind, I want to see these certain movies and TV shows and all this stuff and video games that's coming out soon, but I know for a fact that if I was to start getting into a relationship and then I'm start moving towards marriage, and then and possibly being a father, yeah, that a lot of those things like I can still implement those things in my life, but they take a back seat from
that.
my
Yeah,
family.
when you
They
prioritize,
take a
when you
back
sit
seat.
down and like figure out
Yeah.
what's important to you.
Yeah, yeah, and I know myself. I know that I wouldn't have an issue with making these other little additional things take a back seat. It's like yeah, Morbius is cool, but if that's going to hinder me from serving my wife or my child, I can wait until it's on Disney Plus. I can wait. You know.
Sorry, kid, can't pick you up from practice. Morbius just dropped. I'll catch you in 3.
Yeah. you know, but but yeah, it's just and it's interesting because even as like I said, a bachelor, I think about this scenario all the time. I mean, I may
Yeah.
be not married, but that could change. And I think about, what if the woman has a child already? What if, this lady is from, I don't know, possibly another country, let's just say I do go that route, you know. But I am thinking about these different scenarios, like the adjustment and the change, because for me, you've known your wife, for example, for years, for me, like I think about that all the time. It's like, how would that adjustment be? But at least I know by God's standard what my role is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and
I,
that's
I
something
yeah, what you were saying was important too. With when I remember what I was going to talk about when we go through life like that, like just not caring in the world, you leave yourself open to mistakes also, right? It's not
yeah,
just about the self improvement part. You have your tolerance for bullshit, yes, but it's also you leave yourself open to these mistakes that you're going to make, and then you're forced to. And everyone matures at a different age, right? Everyone matures is forced to mature, I should say, at some point in their
mhm,
lives. And
mhm,
some people, when they're younger, they're forced to take care of their siblings or whatever. Whenever you're in that caretaker role, another life you are responsible for, right?
yes.
Things get a lot more
Yeah.
serious.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Uh,
that
I
that
love.
yeah, that was a super good combo. Glad we got
I
that out.
agree. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree.
A
Very
lot of
good.
a lot of
I love
important
how- I
topics
love-
for this one.
yeah, you said what?
A lot of important topics for this one.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. And what I love is that I love how our conversations often evolve into to something deeper or more, or And sometimes when we're starting a certain conversation, I'm like, okay, it'll be nice to address this, and then it's like starts to mutate and turn into more, and
Yeah,
it starts getting. I'm like, wow, okay, this is wow, and then sometimes you're sharing some things. I'm like, oh yeah, I have something else I want to share, and then
absolutely.
back and forth, and yeah, so I enjoy
Each
that. I enjoy
conversation topic is a boss fight that has different phases. Just to bring it back to Elden Ring.
See, it's funny because I immediately think of Resident Evil. I think
Well,
of
I if I'm being honest, I thought of that too, because the transformations that the bosses have, the next
Like
phase, they're a different
every
creature
time,
entirely, right?
every time. They
Um,
take enough damage and they're just getting worse. Get another arm. It's like,
another eyeball.
oh my
um,
God.
yeah, the only reason I said Elden Ring because we referenced it before, but you're
Worse,
right.
worse,
Resident Evil
worse.
is probably a more adapt or apt description. Um,
Oh
all
my
right.
God.
Well, with that, we can go to our last segment here: questions from the audience. If you guys want to ask us questions, email us at stageclearpod@gmail.com. That is the preferred format for these questions. We're still a little, small right now. We're building a following, so hit us up wherever you see us, social media, comments of these videos, comments of James's videos, anything, and we'll see those questions and we'll go through them. We'll address which ones are good to talk about and everything. If we miss one or two, we'll maybe revisit on another episode. We'll see how it flows. This one's getting a little long, so we'll see. But we do have some really good ones that we're gonna unpack here, so buckle up. But yeah, again, if you want to reach out to us with questions, that is stageclearpod@gmail.com. Again, it's stageclearpod@gmail.com. Email your questions there. We'd love to hear from you. So first on the docket here, one of my
Here
good,
we go.
yeah. So let me pull it up here on my phone. One of my good buddies, and it's funny. The reason why we're plugging this stuff more is because I've heard in my life and in my interactions with people, they're not sure exactly where everything is, right? And I've got like a link tree thing on my social media profiles that shows all the stuff. We got all the descriptions down below, but we have to vocally talk about it more. So calls to action, all that. Like, subscribe, help us out, share it with your friends. The 1 minute clips and everything. That's great. But yeah, so they're asking me like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know there was shorter clips on YouTube. Yeah, there's clips, right? And you're here now, like, right? Even if you're listening to it, there's clips on YouTube watching them. So check it all out. The question he had, my buddy,
Here we go. Here we go.
said, can a relationship thrive where there is a difference in religious beliefs? I'm talking marriage, child raising, familiar traditions, holidays, everything.
Hmm. Wow. That's a deep one right
It's
there.
a big one. Big one.
Yeah, I'm gonna feel like that's gonna be the deepest one today. That's a serious question right there.
Yeah, so I mean, I can kind of take the lead here. I've thought
Yeah, please go for it.
we've been talking about relationships a lot. I've been talking to different people on Twitter about it. I've followed people that like are other in long-lasting relationships. I feel like I have some authority in the realm with my 8-year relationship. Now we're married and everything. Been through different things, long distance and other stuff, and you name it. So, uh, I've it's a topic that's important to me. I want to help people have long-lasting, fulfilling relationships, and something that I've learned recently, and I've asked people too, like, most of my audience doesn't have marriage, they don't have kids, and they're like wondering like what how to date, right? How to go in this dating world. I've talked about it before where I was lucky. Me and my wife met in high school. We're best friends, right? But how do you go about it in the culture nowadays with hookup culture and everything? And how do you address finding someone? And it's so important. Written about it's so important to get the foundation right from the get-go. If it saves you so much heartache and trouble down the line. And not that it's impossible and you can work out these problems, but if you come into the relationship with these things kind of defined and set out, that's how you can kind of ensure a longer lasting relationship. Because if you bury it or whatever, it's going to come to light at some point, right? One of the biggest things is like trust. You can't have love if you don't have trust. Quoting White Chicks, the movie. Love that film.
Yeah, I need to
Um,
watch it. That's
oh yeah,
hilarious.
good stuff. But
Really
yeah,
good.
that's the main idea. And here with this question, different religious beliefs. I think it's easy to say, if it's complete opposites, I think they won't even entertain each other, right? They won't engage in a relationship. If an atheist and like a devout Christian or devout whatever religion, they won't connect. They won't see eye to eye on things, so they just won't move forward with the relationship. What gets tricky is when it's like a Christian or someone else and an agnostic, right? Or maybe an atheist that has different views or whatnot. But when it's kind of closer to the line there, and can that relationship thrive? What does it take? What do you think?
Yeah, that's yeah, I actually think it's good that we address something like this because it's a very important question. And I think that it's something that happens to a lot of people. There are a lot of cases where people start out in a relationship and no one is religious per se, and then one person may even, be called by God out of that, and yeah, things can fluctuate. So I've seen that happen in many cases. Yeah, one thing I want to address as I get into the question is that um, we have a lot of people that are cultural Christians, and it's not actual Christianity. It's just sort of they believe in God, they own a Bible, they may go to church or wrap themselves up with religious activity, but really studying the Bible and taking the Bible seriously is not really something that they really care for. And the Bible is not their final authority on anything, So I just want to make that distinction. Now, I don't know the situation, but I'm just going to say that there are people, and it's very popular here in the West, that a person label themselves as Christians, but they live like devils, quite frankly. Um, According to the Bible, and this is something that any devout Christian that has been called out of their, I'm going to say their darkness, their spiritual darkness, and into God's light. We have very specific instructions not to intermingle ourselves with unbelievers. The Bible is very clear on that. In fact, I want to share a verse, and there's snippets of the verse, but I kind of want to share the whole thing in its entirety. So it's about 3 lines, but I think it'll kind of clear up any misconceptions, and it'll give a clear understanding of what the Bible says in regards to. So it's 2 Corinthians 6:14 through 17. The Apostle Paul, who wrote 13 books of the New Testament, he wrote this, and this is specifically for the church instructions. Here we go. Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? Or what fellowship has light with darkness? What accord has Christ with Belial? Or what portion does a believer share with an unbeliever? What agreement has the temple of God with idols? Or what are we, and it says, for we are the temple of the living God. And God said, and he's quoting the Old Testament, I will make my dwelling among them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Therefore, go out from their midst and be separate from them, says the Lord, and touch no unclean thing. Then I will welcome you.
Yeah.
Okay, so when a person is walking with God, and I'm going to say, for example, whether we have a male or female, they should already know not to entertain a relationship with somebody that's not a Christian, because it's not going to work. If they are genuinely connected with God, if they have been actually transformed, they're a genuine believer in Christ, and then they're entertaining the idea of being with somebody outside of Christ, no, that's not going to work, because what ultimately happens is you have somebody who has a new nature, and then you have somebody who has the old nature that we all come in with, this sinful nature that we inherited just from birth. It's sort of like something that we're all um, held captive to. And even if we are a decent person and we recycle occasionally and we walk old ladies across the street, we're very, nice by social standards. God's standard of what He desires is very different. So the Bible clearly teaches that that doesn't work, and believers specifically, and I'm talking to any believer that is somebody who's professing that Jesus is their Lord, their Messiah. This is what the Bible teaches, that we're not to entertain that. And again, it's our relationship with sin is different than those outside of Christ. So this is something that's very interesting, because um, I myself have found a lot of very attractive ladies that have other faiths, or maybe supposedly no faith at all. And I understand, because of what the Bible's teaching, that they're not an option. And it's not because I'm trying to be mean, or it's not because I'm trying to step on their toes, but realistically, we have completely different natures, and I'll just share this, and I want to hear your thoughts as well, Tim. Um, there was a lady recently that took interest in me, who has a Roman Catholic background, and she was emphasizing to me how important her faith is to her. And I knew that she's a single lady. I know that she's interested in me, and I know that we're around the same age, and I was thinking to myself, man, it would be so easy just to actually have a relationship right now. I know that this lady is ready to, like, be in an actual, real, genuine relationship, and she knows by the things I post online and spending time with me, that I'm not playing around with my faith. This is my life,
Yeah.
and so, and she knows that she would be safe, offering her heart to me, that I would care for her, that I would make sure that, she has everything she needs, but at the same time, I was thinking, because her ultimate authority is not the Bible, but it's the traditions of her religion, which is in often antithetical to what the Bible teaches. I can't, and that doesn't mean I can't be her friend. I can still associate with her. I can still minister to her, but entertaining the idea of being in a relationship with her, she's demonstrating that yes, she's religious, but she's not walking with God. God, has His revealed word in Scripture, and so she wouldn't be praying to Mary if she's familiar with the Bible and has a new nature, and she wouldn't be doing these things. So I know I can't entertain it because the Bible told me I can't.
Hmm.
That's yeah. So it's people can be very kind, very nice, and I know a lot of really nice people that are not necessarily associated with any faith, but according to the Bible, if you're not a Christian, you are outside of Christ. You are a captive of your sinful nature, and your final authority is not going to be God's word. It's going to be whatever you come up with. Your heart, essentially. So that's yeah. So to me, it's not something that to even be entertained. And if the person in a relationship is actually a Christian who's obeying the scriptures, that they're going to know not to entertain that. And that's the reality with that.
That's interesting. I have a couple points here. So it is interesting what you said about the Bible, and God does say in the Old Testament, like He tells the people that there's many versions of many ways to become unclean. And he
Hmm.
says he lays out, and I've read Numbers, I've read what was it, not Leviticus, maybe
Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy, like all the ones that are
Yeah.
more monotonous. It's like there's very many scriptures that says like all these rigorous things to do to make yourself clean again, right? Wait 7 days outside the camp or whatever, like dismiss yourself from the people for this long, or go through this ritual so that you can come back clean, right? So that's a big thing with God, absolutely. But as far as the not evangelism side of it, but I think that's part of it for you, as far as someone that's like a believer in God, is that not enough? Do you think you couldn't evangelize that person and change them, show them the path of like we evangelize other people, we show them the gospel, we show them the moral law? You don't think someone with let's say Roman Catholic background is good as up here, but even someone that just has a belief in God, you don't think there's grounds to present the moral argument and get them on the on the right side here, and get them to be in the relationship with you the right way? I think that would be a good avenue. What I think gets more complicated is when it's like an agnostic person or someone who's atheist, right? Where it's just different. I
Mm.
think marriage is about compromise. That's a big part of it, right? There are certain things you shouldn't compromise on. The
Agree.
foundation that I talked
Agree.
about, I prefaced this whole conversation with building a foundation, right? That's what's going to determine how strong that foundation is how long that relationship will last. If you want it to last all of time, like there needs to be no, distrust. There needs to be upfront with like core values, core beliefs. And if you're constantly at opposite ends of something with somebody at a core belief, that's going to constantly come up. And yeah, it's good to find someone that will challenge you, but not necessarily to the point where you're just at batting, at wit's end with each other all the time. That's just going to brew up conflict. You guys need to be on the same page going into it, and that will,
Definitely.
what I've heard from different people, like even other football players. I've heard one of my buddies. His whole thought process is he just wants someone who wants to grow in Christ, right? That's his
Okay.
standard. He wants to find someone that will accept, wants to be closer to God, wants to be closer to Jesus, and then they can both grow together, right? I have other friends that are more like, no, they need to uh, be a virgin just like I am, right? They hold such a high standard because they're holding themselves to a high standard, right? And you shouldn't have to settle in a relationship, you should shoot for, be confident, absolutely. But it gets harder and you narrow your gap, right? His thing, he wants a Christian girl, someone who's devout. So I don't know if it was a Calvinist specifically that he wanted, but someone who's a virgin like he is, and someone who takes the Bible, like all this stuff, right? Um, and who is like super attractive, like all the stuff, right? So
Oh, he wants a little bit of he wants the whole package, huh?
he's a good looking guy himself. So it's like, why, if he's holding himself to that standard, he expect, right? So it's all about what your standards are and how much you're holding it to. But I'm curious your opinion, because there is a lot of apologetics you can get into. And this is a not different topic. It's all relevant, but I do want to get into. I don't want to forget the part of like an atheist that like let's have the Christian conversation, right, from the Christian perspective, but also just in general later on, right? But so from this perspective, it's like all that matters to be saved, right, is that you accept the gospel. All
Wait,
the
wait, oh, wait. So the question is an agnostic and a Christian, right? Is that
that's
like
typically what it is. But the main question is like people of other religions. I guess if they don't agree on that, right, the
okay, okay.
concept of it, can there be a long-lasting, meaningful marriage? And it brings up all these other factors like having kids and how you want to raise them, and how how much you're going to share your faith with them, and all sorts of things, right? That's
Mm,
the main question. And I told my friend that like we are both Christians, right? We have a certain perspective on it, and I love having you on this podcast. I love having you as my co-host because you are a more devout Christian, and I can come to you for answers, and I think that is something a lot of other people could do. And I'm bringing up things from a young Christian perspective, right?
okay.
So absolutely, I want to hear your thoughts on all this, and looking at someone from a biblical Christian standpoint, but also like from other religions. Like, okay, so there's someone who's Jewish, and there's someone else that isn't, or maybe a Christian and another religion, right? If we all believe in God necessarily,
Mhm.
I think for me, like even with the agnostic, I think if you can, in your heart, believe that there is a God or a possibility of a God, then I
Mhm.
think we have moral grounds, and you have a moral responsibility to express to them the
Mhm.
commandments and the gospel, and show them that like they are not living the right way, right? That they're not taking it
Absolutely.
seriously as they should be. So I think if there's even a belief in God, there's grounds to, I guess, would evangelize be the right word? It's not. I'm not trying to convert people, but at least just
Mhm.
trying to tell my partner that like, and emphasize the importance of it and share my beliefs and how I got there, right? I think absolutely there's grounds to get on the same page. But if they're,
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I'm okay. So let's say, for example, I'm a Christian and I'm walking down the street and I see this really cute girl, and I'm attracted to her, and I start talking to her, and we get along very well. And I don't know, maybe a week later, she expresses that she's an atheist or she's an agnostic. So already I know that from a biblical standpoint, I cannot entertain the idea of being with her, at least where she is right now. Now, there's this impression. So, and this is for some people. There are some people that are under the impression, well, I really like her a lot, so I'm going to hang out with her and share the gospel, and hopefully, and God will just do His magic, and she'll just be a Christian and go along with things. And the realistic, well, the issue is that often it goes the other way around. Usually it's the person that's the unbeliever that often, uh
Corrupts the believer.
correct. Yeah. And it's unfortunate, but it does often become it kind of sabotages the Christian walk. 1 Corinthians 15:33, do not be deceived, bad company ruins good morals.
Yeah.
So we have a standard, and everyone else outside of Christ, they don't. Now, you brought up the different religions thing, and I'm
C-
glad you did.
could I make a point
Yeah,
real quick? I,
yeah,
I
go ahead.
I think that I agree with that, and I've seen even from a football perspective, I've learned like the people that are, hard workers, and like the people that do things right, expel the people that don't. You know what I'm saying? Like they
Hmm.
don't vibe, they don't juice well with those that aren't with the program, right? And
Oh,
that's a
okay,
big
okay.
thing of building culture in a football team. It's like, the senior leadership and everything. When you're doing things right, I think I can't remember which side it was on. If it was like the people
Mhm.
will separate themselves, or the people that aren't living up to the standard will weed themselves out. I think it was the latter. I think the people that aren't don't live up to the standard weed themselves out because they're not really accepted. They don't feel welcome there because of the
Mhm.
higher
Mhm.
standard that's being held up, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So to take that into this format of the religion side of it, that's why I'm kind of arguing that like
Okay.
something could be made of it, you know. But obviously, if you're, I think it also depends of the numbers, right? The community you're in. If it's one on one, it's different. But if, like you said, you brought up with your family, right? How
Mhm.
it was just you were people around you were not as devout of a Christian as you, right? And they sometimes made fun of you for it or whatever, right? But they ultimately kind of got you left that scenario, you know. Whereas I think if there's like I think it's like a numbers game. Like if you're outnumbered there, you don't feel comfortable, you will leave, you know, or you will change and live up to that standard. What's different, I think, if it's a one-on-one interaction, you know,
Mhm.
and how strongly each person holds their faith. I told my friend this I told him short answer, like a lot of it depends on how strongly each person is holding their belief, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the situation with my family, and this is not something I'm happy to share, is that
I'm sorry. I thought you had brought it up last
no,
podcast or
no, no,
something.
no, it's okay, it's okay. I think it's actually important that I share this. Um, but I'm just saying, like, when I, long story short, I grew up in a family that we identified as Christian, but no one opened their Bibles. No one cared. You know,
Yeah.
our Bibles collected dust, and we lived like devils. We did whatever we wanted. Everybody. And so it wasn't until God called me out of whatever darkness I was, and I was before under the illusion I was walking with God, and I wasn't. And then I got, I was changed. And then I realized I was living in darkness, and I realized that my family were not Christian to begin with. They were false converts, and
Yeah.
I have people going in and out of jail. Some are dabbling in homosexuality, fornicators, and they're embracing that, and think abortion's okay. So um, I'm realizing that that conflict that I had with them, it's inevitable. I'm a Christian. I'm being it's not me necessarily saying, hey guys, you guys are a little on the crazy side. Let me back off. It's like it just naturally happens. They start getting convicted around me. I'm walking in the room or walking and visiting, and everyone's cleaning up their language all of a sudden, and I didn't ask
Yeah.
them to. I'm not God, but
Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, but this is what happens to every Christian as you mature and as you grow. This is what happens. Yeah, in regards to um, the different faiths and stuff like that. I I originally thought that it really didn't matter what faith you chose, as long as you have one. You're a Buddhist or you're a Hindu or some form of Judaism or Mormon. As long as there's a God involved, we're all going to heaven and everything's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then I started actually reading what everyone believed and realized that each of these groups have a false Jesus. And if they have a false Jesus, then how can they be saved?
Yeah.
you know yeah, yeah. The Mormons believe that Jesus actually came from, him and God the Father are separate, and they have nothing to do with one another, and they can, and that Jesus had a earthly mother and an earthly father. And so the idea is like, okay, well, so a Mormon is a cult. They don't have the biblical Jesus. And then Jehovah Witnesses believe that he's really the Archangel Michael. Anybody in Judaism, they don't believe that Jesus ever is the Messiah. They believe he's a historical figure, but he's
Yeah.
not the Messiah. So once I started looking into these faiths, I realized that each of them are identifying Christ as not God. So they're not walking in the truth. And it's the same thing with the atheist or the agnostic. Agnostic means essentially ignorance. They don't know.
Yep.
You know, yeah. But Jesus doesn't really give anybody the option um, to dismiss him. You almost have to figure out where do you stand with what he said, because he's not the stuff he says, like he doesn't give you, and C.S. Lewis said this best, he doesn't give you the option to dismiss what he says. Like you either have to identify that, hey, this is God in the flesh, or this is a lunatic. It has to be one or the other. He doesn't
Yep.
give you the option to be on the sidelines and say, oh, well, he was just a good teacher. Like he doesn't give you the option for that. So I do believe that we are to love our neighbor as ourselves. If somebody who, regardless if they're Christian or atheist or agnostic, if they're They have no clothes and they're naked. I'm going to give them clothes, off my back if I have to, or buy them something. If they're hungry, I'm going to feed them. If they're, but no, I'm not going to go date them. They're not a Christian,
Yeah.
and again, it goes against what the Bible teaches. So it's one thing to minister to someone and love them as you love your neighbor. That's one thing, but to entertain a relationship with them when they're not walking in God's truth, that's something entirely different. That's just going against what God said. So it's really so yeah, but yeah. So
That
it's
so I get that perspective, and I think you've done a good job, defending
okay.
it. When it gets closer to the line, though, like we can talk about apologetics all day, and we've talked about evolution and different things in the our conversations, and we do believe both of us biblical authority is key, but not everyone believes that. But ultimately, to be saved, you don't. The Genesis story isn't hyper relevant, right? To be saved, right? To get to heaven as we know it, it is to believe in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, that He died for our sins, He paid our fine, as you say, right? And that essentially is what you need, right?
So so here's the issue with that. The Mormon and the Jehovah Witness believes in everything you just said.
Okay.
They would agree with you.
Yeah.
So how do we make a distinction?
Well, that we do make the distinction later on, right? But again, even biblically, ultimately, right? Isn't it that that's all like you need? I was getting to this argument too with my APU football guys. Like, I was getting to
Mhm.
the creation story, the evolution, all that. Like, what's how do we discern here? And there's a lot of different ideas going around. But and then my buddy came in and said if someone can convert on their deathbed, right, after a life of sin or whatever, but if it's a genuine conversion, they are still within God's favor, and they will, as far as we
Mm.
know or whatever. Um, if that's the case, then it's all the other stuff is it's relevant, but it's not essential. Is
Mm.
that not true?
I would argue, and maybe it's the Calvinist in me. I don't know.
I think I'll agree
Um,
with you with what you're about to argue, but I just, for the sake of
yeah,
having the
yeah.
conversation.
I would argue that when someone loves God, and I'm saying the biblical God, they believe His words, and they believe everything, even the first 10 words, in the Bible.
Yeah,
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. You know, they're going to believe God. And it's a supernatural response. It's not a intellectual response. It's not a mental. It's not, hey, let me decide I want to, you know, believe God all of a sudden. It's something that God instills in us, and then we start believing. One of the ministries that I just want to mention as well, that really helped me through this. It's actually called Answers in Genesis,
yeah,
and Ray
I've
Comfort lives. He works very closely with Ken Ham, the founder of that, and they're in Kentucky. They have the life-size ark and really cool. And they use the actual measurements of the Bible to
the
to build this
qubits
thing.
and all that.
Oh, it's like as big as long as a football field and a half. It's huge. It's huge. So you'd have to have 3-4 days just to explore everything. Um, but yeah, but that ministry was founded because there are too many people that profess to love God and say, but Genesis a little kind of crazy. So they'll skip Genesis 1 and 2, and then everything else is relevant.
Yeah,
And what answers in Genesis essentially points everyone to is everything that God has established in the rest of the Bible first
it's
appears in
foundational upon that. It's always
in, in,
referenced.
in just the book of Genesis.
Yeah,
Marriage is established, God's guidelines, everything is established. Even rebellion of mankind, uh, God telling them directly what he wants, and they say, God, yeah, we'll take it from here, God.
yeah.
You don't
No,
perform.
I
Yeah, so it's
agree with that. Go ahead.
yeah, 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 yeah. But I'm just saying that, yeah. Imagine, I decided to say that I don't think, I believe everything else except I think marriage is kind of foolish for God to, you would say, well, James, it's in the Bible. God's already established marriage. It's actually in Genesis
Yeah,
chapter 2. God, but so it's yeah. So I would be concerned for someone that said, well, these parts of the Bible are kind of relevant, or these parts are kind of significant, but not these other parts. That
yeah,
yeah. For me, when I started growing in Christ, Scripture became like my life. Became everything to me. It became very sacred, and so
yeah.
I like hearing opinions and stuff like that. But if anything, comes out of somebody's mouth that contradicts the Bible, then I would,
Correct
it's like,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that is the ultimate true path is biblical Christianity and accepting the authority of the Bible. Because if you don't, then it leads to all these other loopholes and everything. The Bible doesn't
oh,
hold
absolutely.
up. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
how can you believe one without the other? I get that personally, and that's what
Hmm.
I'm gonna encourage everyone to do. But
Okay.
again, as far as we know it, is it not all that you need is to accept him as your savior, right? And yes, it leads to all these other problems that are prevalent in society and all these other divisions of Christianity and different types of religions, but are our Catholic brothers not going to go to heaven because they believe in the works and everything? They also profess and believe in Jesus Christ, right?
Correct. Just like the Mormon and the Jehovah Witness. Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Correct.
So, what I get, yeah, they're, but so what? Are they not going to go to heaven?
Well, I mean, the question would be, do they believe in the biblical Christ? Because he's the way, he's the truth, he's the life. No
Okay,
one comes to the Father except
through him.
through him. Yeah. So the question would be, do they believe in the biblical Christ and what
Mm.
he says? So yeah, so that would be the question. So, for example, I'm familiar with some of the text of some of these other religions.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I know what they essentially believe about Christ, and they don't entirely believe that he's the way. He is a way, but not the way.
got you.
Yeah, yeah. So that would be the concern, and
So
it's
what?
funny that
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say that I actually loaned I gave a book almost a year ago to your mom, and you probably already have a section of this book. It's from Ray Comfort. It's called World Religions in a Nutshell. But
Yeah,
a lot of those pieces of what he wrote about these religions, they're actually in the Evidence Bible. So there is a Jehovah Witness area and a Hindu area and a Roman
yeah,
Catholic area, and yeah, it'll give you kind of a brief synopsis of what do they think of Jesus, what do they think of God the Father, what do they think of heaven, what do they think of the Scriptures, and it's actually very interesting because I like what Ray did is he really gave kind of like a brief synopsis. It's not really going in detail, but he gives you enough information for you to see what does the Catechism say about Scripture. So, for example, there are all of these different religions. They don't hold the same biblical view as you and I. So that's one thing I would, even for the lady that I was, hanging out with, we went to Denny's and stuff. She has Roman Catholic background. She was emphasizing how much she loves her faith. And I asked her, well, are you aware of the differences between biblical Christianity and Roman Catholicism? And I wanted to just get a feel for, and I don't think she knew. I think she was just thinking, oh, we're basically the same. And so I realized, like, okay, I'm going to have to set her aside and we're going to have to talk about this
yeah.
because
Break it down.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it's showing me that she believes that praying to Mary is something that might be biblical, but it's not.
Yeah,
Not. There's no instructions to only Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And so
so,
this is what happens is with all these faiths, Tim. You ideally just test them, compare them to the scriptures, and that's all. Just compare them every time. Just if I said, hey, I'm actually a woman, you would there's an objective standard. Say, okay,
yeah.
uh, there's a certain standard for what a woman is, James, and you don't qualify.
I get that. So I guess, like you said, the better question: do they believe in the biblical Jesus, right? And I think that's
Yeah,
important. I'm not trying to say, that's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
You could say believe in some dude named Jesus Christ. That's like whatever, whatever he
yeah,
is,
yeah, yeah.
right? If he's not the
Yeah.
one true, that makes more sense. And I would say even like I said, the Jehovah's Witness Mormons, that's way out there. But as far as the Roman Catholics, their emphasis on works needed to be done, right? That is also what that they think that is the path to heaven. It's not. So I get what you're saying there, from the
Okay.
perspective, and this is kind of getting off of relationships, but from the
Yeah, yeah,
perspective
yeah.
of
Okay.
let's say it's two Christians, right? Because
Okay.
there are a
Okay.
lot of Christians out there, and they maybe consider themselves devout or not. Because
Okay.
there's a lot of people that label it and just aren't. So that, like you said, your family and a lot of people's families, right? Um, but so I guess two Christians, but they disagree on certain biblical matters, right? Maybe they don't
Okay.
take. There are Christians that believe God made evolution happen. There are Christians. There are old Earth, old Earth
Mhm.
Christians, right, and then young
Mhm.
Earth Christians, right? So but again, among those circles, is it not again that they all believe in the same biblical Christ? Would they not all go to heaven, right? Even though there are disputes over the creation story and legitimacy of it.
Yeah, yeah. There's one of the tests that I'm going to say a lot of us in the reform community we use is identifying what is the priority foundational pillars, and then what is considered secondary and even tertiary, areas. So
I didn't know
um,
that word, tertiary. I was like, okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah,
College
yeah.
degree, everybody. I didn't know that one.
But yeah, but it's so yeah. So let's say there's some people that say, hey, I believe that I don't know. Uh, when you get married, you have to be married in a church, and other people may say, well, no, you could get married in Vegas, and so something like that, I wouldn't say is that serious, because obviously some people can get married in a courtroom and it's still legitimate, it's still a marriage, it's still, but something more serious would be, you and I talking about God, and I say, yeah, yeah, I believe in God, she's been very good to me. Okay, so I mean, you smile, but there are people that believe that. So that scripture doesn't hold up to that. But yeah, so it would just be like that. So from there, and I don't know what approach you would take in regards to, let's say I did say, God has been very good to me, and she's been really wonderful.
Yeah.
Tim, I think you should also pray to her more consistently. She's done so. So I don't know. I don't know how you would respond, but for me, I would already know there's an issue.
Yeah.
God is spirit, and those who worship Him will worship in spirit and in truth. John 4:24. So I know that that's violating what the Bible says. It's going against. So it's the same thing with other faiths as well. Is when somebody is saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm a Roman Catholic, and we believe in God also. Well, hey, let me go and practice the seven sacraments, or hey, let me go pray to Mary, or hey, let me go pray to this saint." It's like, okay, well, what scripture are you going to point me to show me that? What
Yeah.
scripture are you going to show me? And
Because otherwise,
there is,
everything else is just interpretation by us who are morally corrupt, right?
there you go, there you go, there you go. Yeah,
Okay.
and that's
That's
why
why
a
the
lot of
moral
us,
standard's so important.
yeah, yeah, and this is essentially why we have so many cults. Is we have so many people that just decided that they didn't like certain things in the Bible, so they rewrote it.
Yeah.
And now you have Joseph Smith Jr. and he says, hey, polygamy is actually okay. It's okay. It's okay for me to sleep with your wife and your daughter, and so he did with this congregation. He did.
Try it, John Smith. Try it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But but
No,
this is actually essentially why a lot of us in the reform community get in trouble with people because we if it's not in scripture, then
that's
it's
fair, and I want to applaud you because you've done a great job defending, because I'm here poking and prodding, and genuinely, right? Because I want to be able to defend it like that too, and I think I have the core right where it all kind of stems to
yeah,
biblical
you
Christian.
definitely do. You definitely do. You
Um,
do.
so back to the relationship part of it,
Okay.
you don't because your stance is that you would not associate with that person, you would not consider them for a relationship, and I guess you shined light on
I
the.
mean, I would associate. I would still
Yeah, yeah,
associate with
you're
them.
right. My
Yeah,
bad. You would not
yeah, yeah.
consider them for a relationship. Um, and you mentioned the people that try to share the gospel with them over time as friends and then become something later. But I guess you were against that. You don't think with the base willingness for religion, and some religions would be closer to biblical Christianity than others. Absolutely, I would. You don't think you could do the good work and express to them the faults in their ideology, and that they would even have a thirst and a hunger to come to the right conclusion, and that you could be the one to show them that, and then that fosters into a relationship where you both grow in Christ. Do you not believe that's a scenario?
Uh, John 6:44.
Oh God, you're so prepared. I'm trying my best here to like give you different things and like get like, oh, what's he gonna say? And then it's like, I know instantly I'm blown out of the water. The second you don't even adjust me, you look to the side, John. Give me a chance here, man. Oh my goodness, go,
Yeah.
please, please.
Okay.
Oh.
You're too funny. I love your response. I love it. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up on the last day.
How could I have
So,
forgotten? It is not us that changes people, right? It's God.
correct, correct, correct. And Paul in First Corinthians also makes reference to, he and other believers can pour into somebody, but it's ultimately God who brings the increase.
Yes.
God who, so even if we're talking to somebody, nothing happens unless God brings them out of that. And that's something that for Reformed theology, that's one of our key priorities is getting away from the idea that we're deciding and it's up to us and we have the authority and oh well let me just change that person or let me change myself. For us, the Bible doesn't teach that. The Bible teaches it has to be God's will. God is going to do that. If anything's going to happen, it'll be God. God's going to do that. So think about it. It's like, hey, let me just, I'll just start connecting with this person and hopefully I'll minister to them and they'll be a Christian like me. Hopefully, one day, and sometimes hopefully, and that day never comes,
Yeah.
and the person is still, yeah, basically just kind of, I don't know, living for themselves. And it's been 10 years. It's like, well, okay, what do you do? Because now you've been with them, you spend time with them. Now you've slipped up because you've been hanging out, Netflix and chill, maybe. So, yes, so it's a really tricky situation. My understanding, you want to be mindful of that. And as a man, this is somebody else's daughter. This is, somebody that's made in the image of God. And I can't play around with them. And I don't want to disrespect them in any way. I don't want to, mislead them or anything like that. And I don't want them misleading me. As a
Yeah.
Christian, I have to demonstrate that God comes first. It can't be uh, the pretty girl with whatever, the nice skirt or whatever. It can't be her first. It has to be God first.
That makes sense. I think you did a good job of elaborating that. Um, how about? And I know I keep. It's almost like I keep
Mhm.
adjusting the question, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's okay.
you've
It's
done a
okay.
great
I think
job.
it's
But
good. I
so
think it's good.
as far as like sharing the gospel with somebody, yes, it's God's. Like we can maybe plant the seed and then God waters it or not, right? I think what
Mhm.
you said is good. Like obviously, don't wait 10 years and stuff. But I think being around somebody and maybe not even like you shouldn't try to like make someone your pet project and convert them, right? That's not
I
right.
like that. I like that. I like
It's
that.
not your place to do that, and it's not, no one wants to be treated as such, right? But as
Mhm.
far as just living your life devoutly, and people around you will adjust. They will leave, and they will come to you based on that, right?
I
And
agree.
so
I
I
agree.
think with that principle, living and people around you will receive the gospel via osmosis, and they, you know, they will just get it intrinsically as they're being around you. So with that, will not God water that seed or not, and then that they'll kind of drift from your life or not? Isn't that kind of a place we can take it? Like maybe you can be in a relationship with this person, but they see how good you are or how you're living your life, and if it's admirable, if it's something they want to live up to that standard, they will, inquire about it and maybe have a genuine hunger, and that would be God developing that, would it not? And then if not, they would just leave, and that's God hardening their heart, you know? Is that not a fair take? I'm just kind of not I don't want to say repulsed by the idea. That's not what the
Mhm.
attitude I have. But you mentioned just like again, not avoiding the person, but not entertaining a relationship with them. And I don't know if I'd ever encourage anyone to go that far, just because, especially if it's a closer religion or something to biblical Christianity, right? um,
Mhm.
when you're discussing these foundational aspects, and you don't do this on the first date, like first message to somebody, what do you think about these things? I need to know, right? You're never gonna talk to anybody or date anybody that way, but engage with people, see how you like. Like, there's a lot of things that come first with relationships,
Oh
and
my
once you get
God.
to that foundational level that you discover over time, right? You bring up these things that are important to you, how you want to raise kids and how you're going to live your lives and what you're going to do with when different scenarios come up, what religion you're going to have and everything, right? Um,
Mm.
that is when these things will come to light, and maybe they're not on the right path now, but their willingness to be around you and be with you, and maybe God works through them to bring them to the light. You don't think that's a scenario?
I mean, it could happen. It could happen.
Yeah.
I think I'm against the idea of I don't know what the word is, like almost like anticipating for it to happen. I think,
Yeah, I think we'd agree there. I don't think you
yeah, I
should
think that's
bank on
kind
it
of.
and be like, oh well, if she doesn't, maybe like set a time frame, like by a year, if you're not Christian, we're done
Yeah,
here.
well, it's been 3 weeks, so you haven't given your life to Christ, so
Yeah. um,
I'll
def-
see you later. We tried, but it's been 3 weeks. So,
we gave it a good shot.
yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah,
don't do
yeah.
that, but just be natural with it. Like the natural flow of a relationship and see what comes with it. And I'm sure if they don't come that way, there's gonna be other problems anyway that'll push you away, right?
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not a very popular idea, and again, it's interesting because there's this gosh, I'm trying to see how do I describe this. There's this really, I mean, there's this optimism to some extent, and maybe it's good that a lot of us have adopted, and I have as well to some extent. Where you're around people, you say, you know what, man, God's going to use that person because look at these strengths, look at these uniquely, areas that they have, and the thing is, the truth is, we don't really know. For example, who God is going to call. We don't know the extent of our participation in our interactions with people is sharing the gospel and ministering to people and loving them and serving them, and however, even if I really like a girl and I think she's really cute and stuff like that, it's so funny because we were talking about this, me and a friend of mine, a female friend. She's the only female friend I have that actually is trying to hook me up with somebody. She's actually putting effort in trying to help me. And she showed me a video of just one of her friends that, I have to say the girl is just completely gorgeous. Gorgeous girl, gorgeous. But my friend always reminds me, but she's Roman Catholic. And for me, I know that whether the lady's committed to her faith or not, Roman Catholicism is not biblical Christianity. There's just far too many um, conflicts, and this is actually a little bit more going into the Reformation in the 16th century. That there's so many traditions that have become priority over with the Roman Catholic
Yeah.
system that yeah, it really it's almost like no room for the Bible.
Keep
It's really no.
talking. I need to turn on my light real quick. I'm getting kind of
Yeah, yeah,
dark.
go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, yeah, it's just the idea of praying for the saints. The Bible actually teaches that a saint is someone that is saved by God. So whether they are in this world or not, like you and I would be considered saints from a biblical standpoint. But a Roman Catholic wouldn't understand that. Because they have a different standard. It's not a biblical standard. And I know you and I wouldn't say, hey, I'm a saint. But the Bible would refer to us as saints. We are changed by God. We are harboring His Spirit. So we would be a part of that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the seven sacraments. There's no seven sacraments anywhere in the 66 books of the Bible at all. There's no praying to Mary. There's no concepts of that. There's no all these different concepts. So it's praying a specific amount of time. And it's just I don't know. It's just there's a
I
lot of traditions that have cluttered. Go ahead.
I get that, and that's more like the Roman Catholicism versus biblical Christianity debate. Like I understand those points, and I agree with you. But the biblical Christ figure, they
Mm.
do believe in, and they do agree with all the things he did and all the things he said and everything, right? And maybe it's a little bit uh, not as I don't know devout as they should be because they're not taking all his word or whatever, right? The way we see it with biblical Christianity, but the Christ figure himself is the same. So would that not be enough to, like I said, just show them the right way and see what comes of that? It's like the fifth
Yeah,
time
yeah.
we're addressing the same thing, but it's different things each time. So go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I mean, yeah. As far as I think as
Like you
long
get
as
my
we know that.
point, right? Like it's not about the differences of the relation of the religion. It's about they do believe in the same Christ figure. Like, right? I'm getting my point across.
I mean, no, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I personally, I don't think I agree Um, I don't think I agree, but I don't. I think that the understanding is yes, they are, you know, supporting the same Christ. They still believe in the same Christ, and the only issue is uh, so does the Jehovah Witness, and so does the Mormon. They're all under the same impression that we're all basically, the only thing is each of these groups believe that we are wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you would know that.
Yeah,
They believe they're wrong.
yeah. I grew up
Yeah,
Roman Catholic, and they would preach that, yeah, they take everything in the Bible literally. It's weird, and that was like the
yeah, yeah,
general.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. So it's very interesting, and and for me as somebody who has more reformed background, I'm really careful not to intermingle the two because let's say for example there is a Roman Catholic currently watching this and stumbles on this and they're listening. I don't want to give the impression that hey, it's okay to do all these things that are outside of the Bible. You just believe in the same Jesus, so everything's going to be okay. It's not. They're demonstrating that they're trying to earn their way into heaven. There is no purgatory. There is no thought of that. And so I don't want to give the false impression that they are putting their trust in the biblical Christ when they're not obeying what he actually instructed. These are ideas that came much later on in regards to the practices, and you name
Yeah.
it, catechism, like I said, this, praying to Mary and things like that. Like even Jesus, I remember, and I don't know if should I find this, but Jesus was ministering and during his 3.5 year ministry, and his mom and some of the family came to see him, and somebody said, "Oh, hey, Jesus, your family's here, your mother and father, not your father, but your family's here, your mother and your siblings," and instead of stopping what he was saying as he was preaching and to go see what's going on, he kind of asked the question, "Well, who is my mother and who is my father? Who is my family?" And he said, "Well, it's those who obey the word of God." So he's even kind of like, even he's not agreeing with Roman Catholics, that Mary should be like this priority that should be communicated with as if she has some type of special relationship that she needs to be communicated with, and then she somehow communicates with Jesus, and if you go through her, will somehow your prayers are stronger or something. That's what's sort of given the impression of. But when Christ died on the cross, um, I don't, I don't know if you're familiar with this yet. Maybe you are, but the temple in Jerusalem, the garment ripped completely. It was this big long garment that represented the temple, and it ripped in half. When all these things started happening after Christ died, but it was a declaration that there was no need for a temple or anyone to be in between us and God. Prior to that, God did have, priests and the Levitical priesthood and things like that, and people would go to the priest, and this is something you're probably familiar with, to communicate, to intervene in between on God's behalf. But when that cloth ripped in the temple and Christ died, that was a sign that there is no more barrier. There is no more barrier. That no one, even a priest or no one, is supposed to be in between. It's us, and we can communicate with Christ directly. We can communicate with God directly, and so that's the thing is I don't want to give the impression like, hey, all that stuff really doesn't matter, and it's okay to still stay in this, So my personal opinion is a Roman Catholic, if they truly understand the truth and they know the biblical Christ, they know they have to be out of that faith. They have to be out away from that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of back and forth here.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah. No, but it's good. It's good. It's good to actually have this dialogue.
yeah, and
Good.
that we might, agree to disagree here. I'm considering to ask you like what because I've
Hmm.
just heard so many places that like the
Hmm.
ultimate thing that all you need is to have the gospel, right? Have believe the gospel and with your true heart and your soul and you will be saved, right? And it just seems like anything else is asking extra. And it does get convoluted when you think about Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses and everything when they do believe in the same
Hmm.
Christ and everything. So that does get a little upsetting, but
Hmm.
that's just something that I've, again, another fundamental thing that I've kind of come to know. So that's where I
Hmm.
see that. But unless you wanted to get something in real quick, I was going to finish up with the relationships.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. So, but taking all that, as far as a long-lasting relationship, can two people with different religions engage in one? Ultimately, I think it's very tough. It's all the signs point to having the same strong foundational core values that will help you with so many other parts in your life through
Mm.
kids. I want to make sure I get all the points because he did want me to talk about all of them. Uh,
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
so marriage, child raising, familiar traditions, holidays, and everything. Yeah, so with all those aspects of it, I think child raising is like one of the most important ones. But and his biggest thing was like he is more, no one can prove it. No one's been there anyway, so why bother or whatever, right? Um,
Mm.
so with that in mind, just let people do what they do, and he doesn't want to raise his kids with a certain, I guess, one thing in mind, but let them just be open and do their thing, and he'll accept them, love them no matter what.
Mm.
So again, I think with raising kids and the whole father problem we talked about, it is important to address a moral standard and have a certain way to have ideas of how to raise your kids to be good humans, right? And I
Mm.
think he will. But as far as being on the same page with a long-lasting relationship, that's super important to get out of the way in the beginning. The foundational problems, like you guys need to talk about your core beliefs and how you want to live your lives and see if it's even compatible. And if not, work on that or just let it go, Um, there's something, and I talked to you about this, I think, last time, but just finding out someone's true intentions, right? Not falling for what they tell you, but asking their friends about it or asking other people who know them how they truly live their lives so if that's someone you want to engage with, have a meaningful relationship with, that's all pivotal in having a long lasting marriage or relationship. It's a compromise, it's give and take, right? It's servitude, it's being open to your partner. And, I think my belief is that it can start on different grounds that are vaguely similar. Like, I think it's a lot easier in certain aspects, right? Obviously, like, if there's a foundation for God of any kind, you can have apologetic arguments all day and flow one way or the other. But if you are not, if you don't know what you're doing and you're not faithful of your own respect, then you could be tempted and, as James said, be converted another way. And that's also, not exactly right. So just be wary of that. But I think there is grounds to, and like I said, we're not supposed to be converting anybody. It's not us. It's God's will, right? But essentially, just to go through that relationship and live your life, and you can uh, influence them by the way you're living, right? Apart from that, yeah, it's obviously really hard if they're two very, like a very true atheist and a very true Christian. They're not going to mingle, right? That's not going to progress at all.
Not even a little bit. Not even a
S-
little bit.
So I think it can get, like I said, it's about compromise. It can get closer the closer they are. But again, James made some really good points about uh, finding a good Christian person being a priority. Um, I want to talk to you a little bit too. I think you might be missing the ball here about this Roman Catholic lady. It's been a while. I think James, like you said, you want to get married. Maybe. We'll talk about that more.
Next episode.
I genuinely do think though, James, that like I encourage you to not at least not cast it out. And I know you believe different things or what have you, but I do believe, especially how expressive you are and how devout you live your life as I see it. I think you can do a lot of change there and encourage others to have that seed of want to know the right path. But that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any closing thoughts for this relationship thing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. Just real quickly, it's I have one of my buddies. He's an atheist, and he entertains the idea of me with my faith, but he ultimately, he can't really stand uh, biblical Christianity specifically. He's okay with other faiths a little bit, but and there was one time when he was commenting on something, and he was telling me how something wasn't good or something wasn't best, or he was saying something like that, and I said, well, hold on a minute. I said, you're an atheist. you don't have an objective standard to say best or better or good. What are
Yeah.
you comparing any of this to? What are you comparing it to? And as I pried, um, he started to understand that his uh, his foundational, standard was really himself. It was himself,
Yeah.
and this is why ultimately, and I'm talking about an actual Christian. Why we can't. It's not going to work with somebody, you know, just really, and it's. I think for a lot of us, it is a complex issue, but if we just follow God's word, we see that it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's
Yeah. And when I think
yeah,
about it, that makes a lot of sense because again, when you're living the devout life, you change drastically, and people see that, and people will leave and enter your life because of that, right? And then, like you said, he laid out the groundwork, he laid out the instruction, and I saw this great tweet that was someone this a picture of the Bible, and it said, "Real men read the instructions." So that was pretty solid. I agreed with that. Yeah, I think it depends a lot, like we said, on how devout
Mm,
you are and if you are really saved or not, right? Because anyone can call themselves a Christian and live whatever life they want, right? They
yeah,
shouldn't. I'm not saying they should, but it happens,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's just
yeah,
society.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And and one thing I just want to add is, I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I think I want to be a Christian. I want to take this thing seriously. It almost seems like I was just I just got put in it. It was almost like I thought I was a Christian already, and
Yeah,
I thought I was okay, and then I realized I wasn't after I was, encountered the gospel. So I never asked to sign up for any of this. It just started happening.
yeah,
It just started happening, and I started getting sensitive to things. So that's one of the difficulties I think is even there's plenty of people I just asked them who profess to love God, and I'll say, well, what's the gospel? And you'd be surprised how many people have no idea how to even answer that. They've been reading the scriptures, they've been going to church, they've been doing this stuff, and they don't know how to even answer that. And that's the most basic
pivotal.
aspect of
That's yeah,
yeah, yeah,
bedrock.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, but it's just but it and it appear to be it can appear to be complex. I actually find that just really sticking with the scriptures, everything is actually so easy. It's black and white, but I also know that and this was a challenge that I had early on in my walk is I started absorbing books all the time early on. I was going to Amazon, I was getting books and books and books, and I was like, man, this is amazing. And so then I would talk to other Christians, and I would assume that they were listening and reading the other, um, saturating their minds with the same books, And I realized that no, that wasn't something that was happening. And at first I was getting frustrated, but then I realized, well, no, this is just maybe a strength for me, but they obviously have another strength. Maybe they're a good speaker. Maybe they're good at serving others. Maybe they're good at, so it took a while for me to figure that out. So now I get that. This is why I kind of learned to kind of back off a little bit with certain things. Um, but yeah, it's essentially biblical Christianity stands alone by itself, and every other worldview, I'm including everything. They're all unconverted people, just
Yeah.
basically doing whatever, And some are religious, some aren't, but so it's but yeah, yeah. No, I think it's a very good topic. I'm glad actually this came up. It was
No, yeah, and it addressed some of the things we might
yeah,
disagree on too,
yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think I do have a lot to say about, the atheist friend that you talked about and the whole they have no moral standard and everything. And I've heard that argument, and I'm in the process of either accepting, my thoughts on it, right? And it could be because I'm a young Christian,
Mhm.
Um, and that's why I love having these conversations with you. But maybe that's
Yeah,
definitely a topic to bring up another time,
yeah, yeah,
um,
absolutely.
for sure. So I don't know how you feel. We can try and make one more question quick that I have. So
Okay.
all right, yeah. So we'll try to keep this one quick. I know it's wrapping up pretty long here, but one more
Yeah.
question we got this week um,
Woo-hoo.
was about idols. So,
Mm, I
uh,
doubt.
yeah, yeah. So you brought up my mom earlier and different things that she's doing. So she actually asked the question. She tries to get these questions in, make sure we have something to talk about. But we're actually we're growing a little bit. We have more questions, so it's pretty cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
to talk about this one, she brought up a good one about. She said, she purchased a okay, essentially, she purchased a Buddhist statue, right, a while ago on a trip, and she enjoyed it. And before, I think she might have bought in that it might have brought financial gain or whatever, but essentially, it's about, it's a keepsake, and it reminds her of her a really nice trip she had, right? She knows
Okay.
now, as because she's trying to become a more devout Christian, she
Mhm.
knows now that it's not to have idols in her house and everything, not to give in to false idols or anything. She's wondering if she should, remove it from her house entirely, or if it's okay, to keep it in the home as a reminder of a trip. There's a lot of people that have it in their yards sometimes. Where's kind of the line with that? What is considered false idols? What is considered, false worship? And can you have a keepsake of something else that may be another religion or another idol of another religion or whatnot, just for the sake of like memories, right?
I mean, yeah, I'll try to keep this quick. I know I can be long-winded, but um, yeah, I would recommend to remove it indefinitely. Uh,
Okay.
God is very God is a jealous God. He makes it very clear in Scripture. You and your mom has been reading the Old Testament, so you guys know that very very well
Yeah.
uh, about idolatry, and he's not. That's something that yeah he's not too happy for. My favorite book in the Bible is First John, and it's interesting how First John goes through all these different 5 chapters, and it says all these amazing things, and then the very last line, and to me it almost ends kind of like abruptly, but it says, "But little children, keep yourselves from idols." And I just think about the idea of idolatry and the fact that out of all the 10 Commandments, the first two are basically addressing the same thing, is
Yeah.
idolatry. The
That's
first two.
true. That's true.
Yeah, yeah,
Not
yeah.
just one, but
One
it takes
is
two to like make sure it gets it
yeah,
right, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he made it very clear that, he is the Lord, your God, and then the second one is not to have idols. And uh, in the Old Testament, he's so specific, like not to worship anything above the earth, in the earth, under the earth, like not at all, not at all. So, yeah, anything figurines that you have that represents other faiths and other religions, yeah, I would definitely recommend that. We have a responsibility as Christians to remove those things, and this is a part of being sanctified, being separate.
I like that term of sanctification, not only for the religious context, but it's also a really awesome ultimate move in a video game I play, where this
Eh,
angel creature like creates a
Elden
shield.
Ring.
No, it's Heroes of the Storm. Blizzard's one of the games, and it's a character from Diablo, which is more religious. So this Archangel
Okay.
Tyrael, he has an ability
Ah,
called Sanctification, where he makes a little circle around him, invulnerable to damage for his teammates that stand in it. Anyway, a
nice.
little nerd for you. Yeah, I think that's a good wrap up there. I think that that's the right way to handle it. I was interested, that's an interesting topic. I thought about, like, I wasn't sure. I know that's the right thing to do, but as far as like the complexity of, it's not an idol anymore. It's more so a keepsake of a from a vacation, and still like that is a direct representation of something else, and not only giving
Absolutely.
other people the wrong idea, but giving God the wrong idea, right? So wouldn't want to
Yeah,
do that. Um, Thank you for your insight on that, James.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you for
Good
letting me
question.
know.
Good
Yeah.
question. Again, if you guys want to ask some questions, preferred ways to email us at stageclearpod@gmail.com. That is stageclearpod@gmail.com. And then comments, questions everywhere else on our social media, on the YouTube videos. We'd love to see them. We'll try to get to them. It's more
Absolutely.
streamlined in that email, but we'll try to find them. um, yeah, that kind of wraps up. It was a big one today.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man. Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of
I
important
feel very
stuff.
like, yeah, right. You're gonna have a lot of material to go through, man, for
Oh
sure.
yeah, no, voice is
Yeah, but
losing too. You could probably tell.
yeah, I could hear it. I could hear it.
But so as far as the different topics, let us know what you thought. Like I said, we were kind of dipping our toes, walking on eggshells around. Now we're kind of getting into some meat and potatoes of stuff. It's not what it always supposed to be about, but it is something we're passionate about, and it's something relevant. So we do want to talk about these things. Let us know your thoughts if you want some more entertainment sections in there, because I had some
Huh?
questions for video game superheroes that I kind of left behind. I knew we were tackling a lot today, so we can change some things, the format. See what do you, depending on what you guys like. We are not going to not have a part entirely. Like, this is the podcast, the format. If you guys don't like it, you don't have to watch. It's not for everybody. Um,
That-
But I think we can blend all these things together because we both exist. People have many different interests, right? So I think there is a niche here for that. But yeah, let us know. You want to hear more entertainment, more philosophy, more politics, or more religious stuff? And let us know your questions. Other than that, we can. You want? Do we do plugs after prayers last? So I guess plugs now. So James has a
Definitely.
YouTube channel. It'll be up there. It'll also be in the description. All our stuff's
Unique.
gonna be in the descriptions. Yeah, say it again.
Unique perspectives. YouTube.
Yes, yes. Check them out there. Check us out on our
Mhm.
social medias. It's all down there. The podcast is available in full format on anywhere you would get your podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Audible, Google Podcasts, all that stuff. Also on YouTube, right? If you want to see the screen stuff, and then we have clips all the time. I'm starting to put the 1 minute clips, the little short ones, if you don't have much time, on YouTube Shorts. That's a little weird for me, but I'm putting. They're already on TikTok. They're on Instagram
Yeah,
Reels.
they're all over, man. I feel like, yeah,
I'm blasting them everywhere I can get them. Wherever I have a
yeah.
profile, I'm gonna start like direct messaging people on Xbox Live, sending them stuff. But yeah, so you can find that stuff anywhere. Just check out the links below. We appreciate you guys. Like and subscribe. Let us know what you think. James, you want to close us out in some prayer?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Heavenly Father, thank you once again for just giving us the opportunity to have this amazing conversation. Just thank you for just the relationship that we have and all the many relationships we're going to create with these amazing people that's just hearing us out. Thank you for just all the beautiful things that you're pouring into our lives, and thank you for just every breath, every heartbeat, and just continue to use us to minister to people, and also just enjoy ourselves as well as we have these amazing conversations about different things, our different interests, and just continue to evolve and things like that. So just continue to uh, just influence us the best way that you feel, Lord. And yeah, just thank you for every breath, every gift, because we know every good gift and every perfect gift, according to you in the book of James, is from you, the Father of lights. Thank you, Lord, for everything. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right,
Hmm.
buddy. This one was
All right,
great.
man.
Way to go. Appreciate you.
Man, appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you all that made it to the end. All right, we'll get out of here. We'll get out of your hair. See you next week.
All righty.